Hello, this is your host, Adam Graham, from Pretty Much the Present. And in this video, we'll be bringing you a compilation of old-time radio detective podcasts from 2010. The podcasts are appearing, for the most part, unedited, except for some extraneous or repetitive elements that are being removed because this is a compilation. As I said, these are old, so any websites or offers mentioned may not be valid at the time you're listening unless you find them on our website currently. Now, with that said, here is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, bringing you this week's episode of Box 13. Got any comments? Send them to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Please cast your vote for the show over at Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. We're getting over a bit of a sore throat, so not a whole lot of commentary today. I just want to remind you is you make plans, you start new businesses, you need a website, or you need a website for your family or a personal website. Remember our hosting, the number one hosting, one-on-one. Go to hosting.greatdetectives.net to learn more about the great deals being offered. But without any further ado, we're going to get into today's episode of Box 13. This one is titled Damsel in Distress.
Box 13, with the star of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd, as Dan Holliday.
To Box 13, care of the Star Times. I am desperately in danger, I'm sure. I'm afraid to go to the police right now, so if you'll really go anyplace and do anything like your ad says.
If you really go any place and do anything like your ad says, please meet me tomorrow at 6 in the evening at the corner of Gateway and Lakeview Boulevards. Constance McLean. You didn't know it then, but this was one time, Holiday, you had your work cut out for you.
And now, back to Box 13. And Dan Holliday's newest adventure.
I guess I was asking for it when I put that ad in the Star Times. But I wasn't asking for what happened this time, and I don't want it again. You see, it was, well, might as well start from the beginning, and Susie saying...
Constance McLean. That's a pretty name, Mr. Holliday.
But what do you make of the letter, Susie?
Make of it? Well, what do you mean?
Well, take this line. I'm desperately in danger, I'm sure.
Well, what about it?
No, it sounds like something from an old melodrama.
But it's thrilling. Maybe she is desperately in danger, Mr. Holliday. Why don't you find out?
You think I should, huh?
Sure. You'll be just like one of the old knight irritants.
Knights errant, Susie.
What's the difference? They both hunted for trouble, didn't they?
Well, what's good enough for a knight errant is good enough for me. I'm sorry I can't oblige you by dashing off on a white charge and wearing a tin suit. But so long anyway, Susie. The intersection of Gateway and Lakeview Boulevards was in the fashionable suburb of the city. The kind of a neighborhood where money is the root of the most important family trees. I looked at my watch. It was 6 exactly. Then I heard someone coming. I waited. It was about dark. The shadows of the trees kept me from seeing who it was whispering. But a couple of seconds later...
Hello.
Oh, good evening. You're, Constance McLean?
Oh, no. No, my name's Barbara Rodney. Constance is over there.
Oh, I see. Well, I'm Box 13.
Uh-huh.
Well, what's the matter?
You're different.
From what?
From what we thought.
You mean to tell me you got me all the way out here to see what I look like?
Oh, no, not at all, Mr. 13. I mean, well, what is your name?
Dan Holliday.
Oh, that's nice. Wait a minute. Come on, honey. Oh, come on. He's right up here. Mr. Holliday, this is Constance. Connie?
How do you do?
How are you? She stared at me, and I stared back. She was about 17. Not pretty, but kind of a hungry face and eyes. I smiled at her, and she smiled back.
It's awfully nice of you to come, Mr. Holliday.
Well, not at all. I think anyone would come on the strength of your letter, Connie.
Can we go someplace and talk? I mean, we can't stand here on the corner, can we?
We could, but sitting would be better. What do you suggest?
How about Smudgy Mary's?
I beg your pardon?
Well, Connie means Smudgy Mary's place.
Oh, I thought for a moment you said Smudgy Mary's.
We can sit down there. They have tables, and we can talk. I've got to talk to you, Mr. Holliday.
Just a minute, Connie. What kind of a place is this Smudgy Mary's?
It's nice.
They serve ice cream and sundaes and malts.
Oh, well, swell. Let's go. Is it within walking distance, or do we go in my car?
Well, we can walk, can't we, Connie?
Well, if you think it's safe for me.
Safe? What's the matter?
We'll go in your car, Mr. Holliday.
On the way to Smudgy Mary's, I tried to draw Connie out, but she was determined to wait until we got to that paradise of ice cream and malts. The two kids chattered away, and I gathered they both went to a fashionable and ultra finishing school in the neighborhood. Then I found myself in Smudgy Mary's. Kids were all over. Nice-looking kids. And the usual jukebox. Connie and Barbara guided me to a table in the back, and we sat down.
What'll you have, Mr. Holliday?
What's the specialty of Smudgy Mary's?
You want one?
If you do, Connie.
No, don't think so. Just a lemonade.
Barbara?
A double malt with chocolate ice cream and whipped cream on top. I'll go over and tell Mary. We call her Smudgy because she's always got a smudge on her nose. I'll be right back.
All right, Connie. Want to talk now?
Here, you read this.
She took a crumpled piece of paper from her handbag, shoved it across the table to me. I opened it. There was a message that read, "If you don't get $1,000 from your parents, they'll never see you again." The letters were cut from magazine and newspaper print. I read it twice, then asked, "How did you get this, Connie?"
It came to the school for me.
When?
Yesterday, just before I wrote the letter to you, Mr. Holliday.
Who knows about this?
Just Barbara. She's my best friend. Now you.
All right, Connie. As soon as we leave here, we're going to the police.
Oh, no, please. Please, Mr. Holliday, we mustn't.
Why not?
Well, if I did, Mother would have to know.
Don't you think she should?
No, she mustn't.
Why not?
Well, she isn't well, Mr. Holliday. Well, something like this it'd make her worse.
But this is very serious, Connie.
Then you help me.
Now, look, Connie. You're not helping other girls who may be in your position someday. Let the person who wrote this get away with it this time, and he'll try it again.
Mr. Holliday, if you go to the police, I'll kill myself.
I stared hard at her. Her face was more hungry than ever, and her eyes were scared. Then Barbara came back with the orders.
Here we are. I brought you a specialty, Mr. Holliday.
Thanks, Barbara.
Babs, Mr. Holliday wants to go to the police.
Sit down, Barbara.
Yes, sir.
Now, Connie, have you anything else to tell me?
Today someone called me on the phone. It was a man's voice. He said, I should have the money by the day after tomorrow or I'd be sorry.
That's right, Mr. Holliday. I was there when the man called.
Did you recognize his voice, Connie?
No, I never heard it before, I'm sure. It had kind of an accent.
Do you know anyone that speaks like that?
No, I said I didn't recognize him.
Where are your father and mother?
They're away.
Where?
In Michigan.
For how long?
They'll be gone about 2 months.
I see. This man said you'd have to get the money by the day after tomorrow, is that right?
Yes. Oh, Mr. Holliday, I'm scared.
Why are you afraid to go to the police, Connie?
I'm afraid what will happen if I do.
To you?
Yes. To me.
Yes, she was scared, all right. She didn't touch a lemonade, and I couldn't touch the specialty of the house. You see, I wanted to be alive the next day. A little while later, we left Smudgy Mary's. We didn't say much. Connie, because she was scared. Barbara, because she was scared. And I, because, well, I had an idea. It was after 8 when we pulled up in front of the school where they lived in the dormitory. Connie and Barbara got out of the car.
What should I do, Mr. Holliday?
You sure that man said day after tomorrow?
Oh, yes, I know he did.
All right, Connie, I'll do what I can.
You'll help her, Mr. Holliday?
Of course I will, Barbara. Now, you two run along. I'll wait till you get inside. Go on now.
I don't know how to thank you.
Don't try. Just take it easy and don't worry.
All right. Good night, Mr. Holliday.
Good night, Connie. Barbara.
Good night.
I watched them until they went in. I was about to close the car door and drive away when...
Mr. Holliday! Oh, Mr. Holliday!
That was Connie. It didn't take long to cover the distance to the dormitory entrance. Connie! Barbara!
Mr. Holliday! Look, it was under my door. This.
Another letter. Give it to me quick.
Oh, here comes Miss Ogilvy. She's headmistress.
Oh, please, Mr. Holliday, don't show her that letter. Please, don't tell.
I don't know why I stuck that letter in my pocket. Maybe it was Connie's face. Absolute terror on it. But I rammed the letter in my pocket just as...
And what does this mean?
Please, Miss Ogilvy.
And, sir, who are you?
She looked at me, and I remembered my 5th grade school teacher. The one who didn't like me. I looked at Connie. There was a desperate please-don't-tell look on her face. Barbara was as white as a sheet. I decided to be hung for a sheep as well as a lamb, Miss Ogilvy repeated.
Well, sir, if you please. Girls, into your rooms.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm waiting, sir.
I'm in the wrong house.
Really? And for which house were you looking?
The Smiths.
Really? Where do they live?
Not here, I guess.
I hope you have an explanation.
Well, I'm afraid I don't. All right, I'm waiting for a streetcar. Will that do?
May I have your name?
If you'll just forget all about this, I'll go quietly home and lie down for a while.
I'm afraid I shall have to ask you to stay.
That's very kind of you, Miss Ogilvy, but I have a previous engagement.
If you try to leave, I shall ring the alarm, and the caretakers will stop you.
All right. What do you want me to do?
Nothing. But I'm going to call the police.
All right, Holliday. All right. You were in the wrong house. Why?
I told you, Kling, I made a mistake.
Couldn't you tell a girls' school from a private home? Besides, there's no one in the neighborhood named Smith.
How do you like that? 3,000 Smiths in that phone directory, and I picked the wrong neighborhood.
You should have worn a ribbon in your hair, and nobody would have noticed you.
Thanks, dear. You're pretty, too.
Listen, Miss Ogilvy preferred charges, trespassing, and a dozen other counts. She can make them stick.
Kling, what if I said I had a good reason for being there, but I couldn't tell what it was? What would you say?
The same thing I said 2 hours ago. Why?
I can't tell you, I promised.
All right, you'll spend the night in the jug.
Unless I put up bail, which I'll do. I could have told Kling, but I kept thinking about Connie. Maybe I believed her when she said she'd kill herself if I told the police. Anyway, I kept the whole thing to myself. The next morning, I went over the second letter she'd received. It read, "You have one more day to get the money from your parents." One more day. That meant today, and that was all. I did a lot of thinking, and it added up to something very, very strange. I was thinking about it when the phone rang, and Susie answered it.
Hello? Yes, just a minute. Mr. Holliday, Lieutenant Kling wants to talk to you.
Oh? Okay, Susie, thanks. Hello? Yeah? What? When did you hear that? Okay, I'll be right over.
Mr. Holliday, what's the matter? You look scared.
I am, Susie. Maybe I've made a mistake. Connie McLean's disappeared.
Now back to Damsel in Distress, another Box 13 adventure with Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday.
Kling and I drove out to the school, he pondered at me to find out what I knew. I told him about the letter then. I had to. He was mad. I guess he had a right to be. At the school, we sat across from Miss Ogleby and Barbara Rodney.
All right, Miss Ogleby. Let's hear what happened.
Barbara, please tell us what you know.
Well, I woke up this morning. Connie and I have the same room.
We know that, Barbara.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I looked across to Connie's bed. She wasn't there.
What time was this, Barbara?
When I woke up, about 7:30.
And you looked everywhere for her?
Oh, yes, Miss Ogleby.
What makes you think Connie disappeared?
Constance has never been tardy for a class, Mr. Holliday. And I might ask what you know about this. Your actions last night
Barbara,
were
will
not...
you leave, please? I'll talk to you later.
Hey, Holliday, what's the idea?
Please, Kling, I want to learn something.
Is it all right, Miss Ogleby?
I suppose so.
I'll be in my room.
Now, Mr. Holliday?
Kling, tiptoe to the door. See if she's there.
Huh?
Please.
Okay.
Oh, I'm going. I'll be in my room.
Well, that's strange. I never suspected Barbara would do a thing like that.
What's on your so-called mind, Holliday?
Some questions? Miss Ogleby, do you know if Connie had any dates?
Dates?
Yes. Parties, dances.
No, she didn't. Why?
How about Barbara?
Yes,
They're very close to each other, aren't they?
inseparable. But what is this leading to?
I don't know yet. Now about Connie's mother and father.
Yes?
Do they come to see her often?
Not very. They do a great deal of traveling.
Uh-huh. Thanks, Miss Ogleby.
Now, Holliday, you through playing games?
No, not yet. Miss Ogleby, isn't there some sort of dance coming up soon? I think I saw a notice on the bulletin board as I came through.
Yes, next week. But really, I don't see how questions like these are going to find Constance.
Oh, Kling.
Yeah. What now? You going to ask me to the dance?
Look, Kling, I'll get Connie back here, and no one will know anything's happened if Miss Ogleby will agree not to press the charges against me for last night.
What?
Miss Ogleby, you know it wouldn't be good for the school if this got in the papers, would it?
Not at all.
Oh, great. The poor kid's disappeared. She got those letters, and you're worrying about the school.
The letters gave her until tomorrow to get the money. All right, I've got all day. But I want to do this my way. Believe me, it's for Connie's sake. Well?
Very well. I agree.
All right with you, Kling?
Oh, it has to be.
Good. If I'm not back in 12 hours, bury me anyway. I was playing a hunch all the way to the finish line. If it worked, okay. If it didn't, then Dan Holliday was cooked like a hot dog at a barbecue. I had a couple of stops to make. The first one was at the Star-Times. There I asked Mona, the society editor, a few questions.
The McLeans? Are they the ones, Dan?
Uh-huh. They got a daughter, Constance.
That's right. And 100 million or so.
Where are they now?
I can't tell offhand, but wait a minute. That file should tell. The Riviera, not here. Nice, not here. Monte Carlo, not here.
Mona, please drop the opera glasses and get to the McLeans.
All right, Danny boy. Let's see. Here we are. Mr. and Mrs. Randolph McLean have left for an extended vacation in Florida.
Florida? You sure that's not Michigan?
Well, if it is, the Florida Chamber of Commerce is going to be awful mad.
Did they return yet?
No.
You sure?
Of course I'm sure. That's my job here, remember?
Okay, Mona, thanks. I'll remember you at Christmas.
Once a year is all I ask. So long.
There was another stop to make. And strange as it may seem, it was to see a psychiatrist. Well, what he told me checked, but good. Then I made one more visit, this time to a telegraph office. I sent a wire to Connie's parents to charter a plane and come home at once. When that was done, I was all set except for one more little item. A long talk with Barbara. I got Miss Ogilvy's permission to take Barbara for a drive in my car.
But, Mr. Holliday, why do you want to talk to me?
Oh, maybe I just like to, Barbara.
Where are we going?
Is Smudgy Mary's open in the afternoon now?
Yes.
Okay. Let's you and I drop in for a lemonade or a malt. How about it?
Well, I've really got to get back to school.
Miss Ogleby said it was all right for you to come with me.
Oh.
You didn't hear Connie leave the room this morning, did you?
No, I didn't.
And you're sure you looked all over for her?
Oh, yes, everywhere.
Uh-huh. Well, here's Smudgy Mary's. You know, Barbara, a diet like this will ruin my health. But come on.
All right.
Well, practically deserted. Is that Smudgy Mary?
Yes, that's she.
Mm-hmm. 2 specials, Mary, please.
Oh, really, Mr. Holliday, I don't think I can eat
Let's try the jukebox. Any particular number you'd like?
No. Anyone's all right.
Okay. Come on, we'll take this table over here.
What do you want to talk about?
Connie?
What about her?
Come on, Barbara. Why don't you tell me where she is?
Well, because I don't know. I'll bet she's been kidnapped. Those awful letters. They said that
Those letters wouldn't have fooled a baby, Barbara. No kidnapper's going to ask for $1,000, not when the parents are worth millions.
Well, maybe he was scared.
Could be. But that second letter under the door last night, the kidnapper put it there?
He must have.
Mm-hmm. Well, how did he get in?
Well, I guess he sneaked in.
Barbara, no kidnapper goes around in brightly lighted halls shoving threatening letters under doors.
I don't know where she is.
Barbara, please tell me.
You won't tell anyone, will you, Mr. Holliday, please?
I'm afraid I'll have to, Barbara. But maybe everything will come out all right. Now we'll save those Smudgy Mary specials until later. Right now, we're going to pick up Connie. How about it?
All right, Mr. Holliday.
Barbara and I drove out into the country and up where the lake sits in the hills. There were a lot of cabins around. Barbara directed me to one, and I stopped the car. This it, Barbara?
Yes.
You wait here. I walked up the path, up the porch stairs. Tried the door. It was unlocked.
Who? Mr. Holliday.
Hello, Connie. How are you? It's all right now, Connie. It's all right. Come on. We'll get back to town. Sure, everything was all right. I drove the 2 girls back into town. They didn't say a word. I dropped them at the school and then had a long talk with Miss Ogleby. It was later that night when Lieutenant Kling and I walked into the McLean home. Mr. and Mrs. McLean had called from the airport. They said they'd be home in a few minutes. Connie and Barbara were upstairs. Miss Ogleby, Kling, and I sat in the big living room.
All right, Holliday. How about the plot? Going to get with it?
I think we'll wait for the McLeans, huh?
There won't be anything in the papers, will there?
That depends on Lieutenant Kling, Miss Ogleby.
Why me? Listen, I still don't know who pulled the snatch.
Kling?
Oh, I beg your pardon, Miss Ogleby. What I mean
By
is...
snatch, you mean kidnapping.
Yeah, that's right. You talk English.
Oh, that'll be the McLeans. Miss Ogleby, would you mind getting the girls down here?
Certainly, Mr. Holliday.
Connie,
Where's my daughter? Where is she?
Mr. McLean, my name is Holliday. I sent you and your wife that wire this morning.
Where is she? Is she all right?
Yeah, she's all right. She's coming down to...
Mother. Connie. Oh, darling. Oh, darling,
Oh,
it's so
Mr.
good
Holliday,
to see
we're
you.
so
I'm
grateful.
worried. Let me
I
look
can't
at
tell you how much.
Uh-huh, we'll see. Connie,
Yes, Mr. Holliday.
would you and Barbara wait outside? We'll only be a minute in here.
Yes, sir. Come on, Barbara.
Who did it? Who kidnapped her?
You did. You and your wife.
What?
Mr. Holliday.
What are you talking about?
You're insane.
No, I'm not. Now, listen to me. You have a daughter, but no one would ever know it. How often do you see her?
Now, see here, Mr. Holliday.
About once a year, you put her in a school and forget about her. Except when you think something's happened.
Holliday, you can't talk to me
I'm not
like
finished, Mr. McLean. That kid's lonely. And because she's, well, maybe you call it plain, she doesn't go out very much. Not many dates.
I don't see what this is all about.
You see, I talked with a psychiatrist today. Used a lot of fancy words, but they boil down to this. Connie wants and needs attention and affection desperately. She didn't get them here, so she thought of this scheme. Pretend to be kidnapped. Get attention called to herself. Then she'd come back with a story. She'd be in the limelight. And Barbara helped her because, Well, because she's her best friend.
Now, wait a minute, Holiday. We'd have torn holes in her story. She wouldn't have gotten away with it.
I know. That's why I didn't tell you right away. That's why I wanted to handle it my way. If this had gone to the police, the whole thing would have blown up for Connie. There'd have been a newspaper story, ridicule for the girl. But this way, well, let's give Connie a break. And Barbara. How about it, Cling?
Sure, I'm willing.
Oh, thanks, Cling. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
I'm a soft-hearted cop.
Mr. Holliday.
Yes, Mr. McLean?
I guess my wife and I didn't realize how selfish we really were. We thought we were giving Connie all she ever wanted.
Yes, all but one thing. The one that really mattered. Affection.
Well, I want to thank you and Lieutenant Kling. And, well, now I think I'll start what should have been started years ago.
Sure. But you've got lots of time. Mind if I cut in first?
What do you mean?
Well, you can start tomorrow. Meanwhile, I think I'll play this all the way, huh?
What are you up to now, Holiday?
Practice what you preach, I always say. Connie. Oh, Connie.
Yes, Mr. Holliday?
Everything's all right in there. Nothing to worry about. For you either, Barbara.
Oh, you're wonderful, Mr. Holliday.
Oh, Barbara. Will you excuse Connie and me for a moment?
Huh? Oh, well, sure. Well, I'll be upstairs, Connie.
Connie, about that dance. Got a date for it?
Oh, sure I have.
Connie?
Well, no, I haven't.
Well, look, I'm just a little older than you are, and when I comb my hair and put on a tuxedo, I look like I've been in the stag line a bit too long, but do I get the date?
You? Honest?
We'll make a night of it. First the dance, then, even if it kills me, Smudgy Mary's for a special.
Did you have a good time at the dance, Mr. Holliday?
I was the belle of the ball, Susie. Everybody cut in on me to dance with Connie.
Uh-huh. But you didn't tell me one thing, Mr. Holliday.
What's that, Susie?
What's a Smudgy Mary special?
Oh, well, 3 scoops of chocolate ice cream, 3 strawberry, 2 vanilla.
Oh.
Slice 4 bananas and embalm them in pineapple syrup and lay them out neatly alongside the ice cream.
Pineapple. Strawberry.
Let's see now. Oh, pour on 2 ladles of chocolate syrup, a huge gob of whipped cream.
Mr. Holliday,
wait a minute. Then sprinkle with nuts with a few bits of shells left in and... What's the matter, Susie?
I ate an awful big lunch. Good night, Mr. Holliday.
Alan Ladd appears through the courtesy of Paramount Pictures. Watch for him in his latest picture, Saigon. Box 13 is directed by Richard Sandville, with original story by Russell Hughes and original music composed and conducted by Rudy Schrager. The part of Susie is played by Sylvia Pickard, and that of Lieutenant Kling by Edmund McDonald. Production is supervised by Vern Karstensen. This is a Mayfair production from Hollywood.
Welcome back. I know there's a lot of laws changing at the FDA, so let me just say I'm not going to give a caloric value to that particular recipe. And I'm not going to recommend the recipe, but if you feel the urge to make yourself a Smudgy Mary, let us know how it tastes. Feel free to email that in to Box 13 at greatdetectives.net. Only thing is, it seemed like a really quick resolution to a very deep problem. I tend to buy detective dramas more than some family dramas when it comes to half an hour, or in this case, just a couple minutes to resolve a particular case. But it was a nice thought, and a pretty interesting case. Though I think I had the idea that this wasn't a real threat kind of from the beginning. So, from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, bringing you this week's episode of Pat Novak for Hire. Got any comments? Email me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Please cast your vote on Podcast Alley. Thank you for all the support this month. And if you haven't voted already, please do so. We encourage you to vote once a month over at Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And always remember our survey, survey.greatdetectives.net, if you've not filled it out. Got a comment here from Pinkertonic on Podcast Alley. Having a new detective every day keeps the attention on this podcast. The commentary before and after by the host gives perspective on what was going on in the world at the time of the recording. Adams gives tidbits on the actors and actresses and really helps the story be more fun. If you like awesome stories with a really great commentary, then this is the podcast for you. And Pat Novak is the best. Another one, actually, Dry says, love the show, one of my favorites, especially because of the frequency of play for Pat Novak for Hire, one of my favorite old-time radio shows. Pete Kelly's Blues would be a great addition, but because the formula of the two shows are so similar, right down to Tudor Owen, as Jack Webb's down rum-soaked sidekick, castigating the hero before he helps out, it might be a little redundant, but redundant ain't always bad. Well, it's not always bad, but we want to save some of these because, once we run out of a show, then we move on to the next one. So you'll get, we've got 6 more weeks counting this week of Pat Novak, and we will end up doing Pete Kelly's Blues. It's a little bit later down the line, but keep listening, and thanks so much for everybody listening to the show. We're going to get into today's episode of Pat Novak, the Geranium Plant, in just a moment. But before we do, I want to encourage you as you make your travel plans for the new year, remember Johnny Dollar Air. JohnnyDollarAir.com is Priceline.com, which I will go ahead, in addition to supporting great old-time radio, you're also helping to support William Shatner, if that helps. But more than that, you're going to get some great deals on airlines, hotel tickets, cruises, rental cars. Check out JohnnyDollarAir.com for all your travel needs in 2010. But without any further ado, it's time for the Geranium Plant.
Sure, I'm Pat Novak, for hire. That's what the sign out in front of my office says. Pat Novak for hire. Oh, there are a lot of ways to put it, but it's easier if you let your slip show right from the beginning. Because down on the waterfront in San Francisco, you got to do a lot of things to make a living. Otherwise, it's like being a CPA in a charity ward. I rent boats and do anything else that'll keep a bum lawyer in beer and broadcloth. Works out all right. You make a few bucks if you don't forget there are only 2 questions you can ask anybody down here. When and how much. Even then, you got to watch out, unless you like your trouble without a chaser. I found that out Monday night. I closed shop and I walked down the street to Noonan's Bar. No, it really isn't a bar. It's just a couple of stools with a bottle opener and a jukebox full of Irish tenors, but it's good enough to give you a shove down the road. Must have been about 11. I was sitting at one end of the place by myself, sorting out mistakes and spending a $50 on the bar, so I don't know when she came in, but she came in. I remember that.
Does it always come up heads?
If you're lucky. Who are you?
If you're that lucky, you'd have dollar bills to do it with.
Look, I'm low on chatter. Why don't you go down the counter and talk to the racy set, huh?
I'd rather buy you a drink.
Noonan's a social climber. He's going to throw you out.
You buy me one, then.
And I'm broke to strangers. Now, that winds up the conversation. See you later.
We'll talk Thursday, then. I went to your office, but they said you were over here. I want to hire you, Mr. Novak.
Have you got a name to go with a figure?
It won't fit in your file. I want you for 3 hours' work tomorrow afternoon. Can you do it?
I said yes. It might be too tough.
There's a flower stand at the corner of Post and Kearney. I want you to go to that stand tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. Pick up a geranium plant at this address.
I'm too big for a Western Union boy.
Are you too big for $50?
No. Must be a pretty geranium at those prices.
Some people love nature, Mr. Novak. Do you care?
No, I know a guy who likes parrots.
You go to the stand and tell them you want the plant. Take it straight to the address I gave you. It's important. Don't let it out of your hands.
For $50, I'll act like we're married.
I better give you the money now.
Oh, you're eager. Suppose I don't deliver.
I found you tonight. I can do it again.
Mm-hmm. Well, where do I get in touch with you?
You don't. Mr. Novak, this is the last time over the course. So take a good look now.
Yeah, I'm away past midnight already. Suppose something goes wrong tomorrow.
Then it's very simple, Mr. Novak. You won't have to send for flowers. Good night.
I watched her as she turned and walked out the door. She was wearing a flowered print dress, and as she walked, the roses kept getting mixed up with the daisies. She walked with a nice, friendly movement, like the trapdoor on a gallows. As she reached the door, she turned and smiled once, as if she knew the $50 was just for laughs. I scooped up the dough before anybody could see it, because at Noonan's, everybody gets broke in one motion. I left a few minutes later, and I went home to bed. I dreamed real good on $50, so I felt good the next afternoon when I got to the corner of Post and Kearney. The flower stand was there, all right, and I leaned against the storefront to watch the guy for a while. Maybe I should have known then, because right away I got the idea he didn't know what he was doing. But you can say that for a lot of senators. So I let it ride. When the jewelry store clock across the street said 2 o'clock, I walked up to him.
Can I do something for you?
Yeah, give me a geranium plant.
What kind do you want?
Big one, a small one, I don't care. It's 2 o'clock. I'll take that kind.
You want a geranium?
Look, it's going to get dark. You got that long to argue?
Here's the one you want, then.
If you say so. You want to wrap it?
No, it's all right. You carry it that way.
Well, I'm going to look real funny walking around with a handful of geranium.
Why do you want one, then?
Uh-huh. I see. You don't feel like talking about it?
No. Just take it and be happy.
Yeah. How much?
Nothing. Doesn't cost a thing.
Suit yourself. You won't make much dough that way.
I'll make even less talking to you. Just take the plant and be careful.
Oh? How do you know what I'm going to do with the geranium?
I don't, mister. Some people eat them. Just be careful and goodbye.
Well, the way things were going, Post Street began to look like the main drag in Casablanca. I watched the guy fumble around with a customer for a minute, and then I crossed the street and started up toward Union Square. The cop gave me a kind of a funny look when he saw the geranium. He smiled as if he thought I had a pair of dancing sandals in my coat pocket. About halfway up the block, I stopped to look in an art store. Right then, I noticed the guy with the cane for the first time. He was standing near me, looking in the other window. He was a little guy and kind of wrinkled and bumpy. His skin looked like a cucumber full of powder. I started up the street and pulled in at a bookstore. He stopped, too, and I knew he was following me. When I got to Stockton, I turned left and walked toward Geary Street. Halfway down, there's a little street called Maiden Lane. Oh, it sounds gentle, but so does Vesuvius when you say it fast. I just started to cross when a black Nash pulled away from the curb. Some dead relative must have put in a good word for me.
Hey, over here! Hey, pull him over! Hey, over here! You all right, mister?
Yeah, I'll do, I guess.
You're lucky you're not dead.
Yeah, we're all that way. Give me a hand, will you? Oh, thanks.
That car came out of there and hit you on purpose. You're lucky you're not dead.
All right. I owe the house a free roll.
This lady here took down the license number. You want it?
Yeah, thanks.
You sure you're all right?
Yeah, I'm a slow bleeder. I dropped a plant somewhere around here.
This it? This red thing?
Yeah, that's it, thanks.
Didn't even hurt the plant. That's something. You know, when I saw that car come out of there and hit you, you know what I thought about you?
That fella's lucky he's not dead.
Yeah.
Well, I looked around, but the little guy with the cane had disappeared. As I crossed Union Square, I kept looking around, but he was gone. Well, I tried to forget about it, but I couldn't get it out of my mind. It kept coming back and showing up again like a bad reputation. Why had the guy started to follow me and then stopped so suddenly? And how about that guy in the car and that $50 geranium? Well, I got a cab over at the St. Francis stand, and I rode out to the address that the girl gave me. On the way, I looked at the flower. From what I could see, it was just a geranium planted in a little wooden box. Like all the rest of them, it bloomed unevenly with buds that looked too nervous to come out, like a debutante with thick ankles. When the cab pulled up at the address, it was a rooming house out on Clay Street. The note I had said third floor rear, so I went up there and knocked. There was no answer, so I went in expecting to find anything. Anything but what I did find. Hello?
Go away. Go away and leave me alone.
She closed her eyes and stopped talking. She was so sick it showed like a searchlight in a cave. Her complexion was pasty and the color of a November sky. She had no expression on her face, just thin lips drawn so tightly the rims were white. Oh, she wasn't ready to quit yet, but you could tell she'd been papering the house for years. And you wouldn't want to bet on her. She was going to last about as long as a warm snowflake, it was easy to tell. You got a bad cough. You need some sun.
I need more than that.
Yeah, I guess you do.
Who are you?
Relax. I'm not the welcome angel. I just brought you some flowers.
Is it a joke of somebody?
I don't know, lady. With me, it's a $50 hustle. They're your flowers, so you work out the right answer.
Go away. Go away, please.
You want the flowers?
You brought them for me, didn't you? Leave them and go away.
Well, it's just a geranium. I'm going to leave it on the table.
Why'd they send you?
My reason was $50.
Did you come to hurt me?
I don't know. Do you rate it?
Oh, I'm too tired. You couldn't really hurt me, could you? Thank you for coming. Thank you for your kindness.
Sure. If that's what it is, you're welcome. That's all she said, and that's all that happened in that little room up on Clay Street. It wasn't much, and it wasn't enough to worry you, but for some reason I felt like a man in quicksand complaining about his height. When I left there, I took a car down to Market Street, and I had dinner. Well, it didn't go right because I kept thinking about this afternoon and last night. Who did she mean by they, and where did all these people fit together? The guy with the cane, the gal that gave me the $50, and the little chair about a maiden lane. Well, I tried to forget about it, but it wasn't easy. It was like trying to change a typewriter ribbon with mittens on. After dinner, I went home. It was about 8 o'clock, and when I got in the apartment, it was dark. Before I had a chance to put on the light, I knew somebody was in the bedroom. I walked over to the door. In the dim light, it looked like a walrus in pants, but it turned out to be Inspector Hellman from Homicide.
Hello, Novak. I just dropped in for a chat.
Do you always chat with your hand in the bureau drawer?
It's restful. I've been looking over your stuff.
Is this a social call or are you out stealing?
Where you been, Novak?
What do you care, Hellman?
All right, I'll tell you where I've been. In a third-floor room out in Clay Street.
I left one this afternoon.
It's the same one. Your fingerprints are all over the joint.
I'll bet you checked everywhere.
What were you doing out there?
Delivering flowers.
Is that your best try, Novak?
It's the best I'm going to do for you. If you don't like it, check with a woman out there. I brought her flowers and left.
What woman?
The one on the couch, a black-haired girl with a half-dead look.
You're wrong twice.
Huh?
There's no girl out there, unless she's tattooed on the guy's chest.
Oh.
And that guy doesn't have a half-dead look. It's better than that.
All the way.
That's right. He's dead enough to pray for. Will that do?
Hellman's sleeve so full of fat, I didn't expect anything else up there. He flipped on the light, and I could see he was real pleased with himself. He was smiling like a guy who's just found his partner bidding no trump with 13 spades. He sat down on the bed and unbuttoned his coat. Part of his stomach oozed out and hung over his belt like a 1910 lampshade. He lit a cigarette, and then he began to run his tongue over a set of teeth that looked more like old mandolin picks than teeth. He blew smoke and looked about as appetizing as a piece of squid pie.
Must have been a short argument, Novak. The coroner says the guy checked out in a hurry.
What else does the coroner say?
That it was good poison. You buy only the best, Novak.
Don't stub your toe, Hellman. I went up there to deliver a geranium plant.
So far, you got a good case. The guy was poisoned with a spring needle, hidden in that geranium box.
Who was he?
He didn't say, and there wasn't any identification. Do you want to help?
I don't know, Hellman. When I was there, we were doing Camille. Some ghost woman was dying on the couch by inches. It was her room. You better check.
We did. The room was rented 10 days ago by a man named George Langley. The landlady says there's never been a woman in the room.
That's what all landladies say. Wake up, Hellman. I stood there and watched her shake like a dust mop for 10 minutes. You can follow up on her and then check that flora stand at Kearney and Post.
What do I check for, boll weevils?
He's the guy that gave me that geranium plant.
We'll check. I want you down at headquarters by midnight tonight, Novak. You can talk to yourself till then. After that, you talk to us.
I'll make it up from here on, Hellman. You don't like it the other way.
Suit yourself, Novak. You know when you're due. In the meantime, we'll find out what we can.
I can't wait that long, Hellman. You couldn't find a tractor on the back porch. I'd hang if I waited for your boys.
That's what you're going to do. And at midnight, you can dangle as high as you want.
I don't mind as long as my feet are on the same level as your head. When Hellman left, I sat down to try to piece things together. I knew everything was there if I could just shove it into place. It was like trying to swap an egg beater for a mixmaster. I was pretty sure there was something about the geranium plant I should remember. One little thing that threw everything else out of focus. Well, I finally gave up. I was $50 ahead and one murder rap behind. Depends on how you like your fun. $50 is all right, but the pleasure's limited. Like giving somebody a hot foot in an ammunition dump. If I was going to drag the town, I needed help. So I looked up the only honest guy I know. An ex-doctor and a boozer by the name of Jocko Madigan. Oh, he's all right for a guy who thinks people with steady hands are lazy. I finally found him in a little tinsel joint on Mason Street. It was high class for the neighborhood. The smoke was only a week old, and they had a cigarette girl. A long, leggy biscuit that wandered around trying to sell a sour smile at sweet prices. Jocko was down at the end of the bar, rolling some olives back and forth. The rhythm was fine.
Ah, Patsy, you're just in time to help me off the wagon. A stout glass for Mr. Novak.
No, I want to talk to you, Jocko.
Oh, Patsy, confidentially, I hate martinis. I just drink them for the vitamins. Everybody should have a few vegetables, and I have chosen olives.
Look, I'm in trouble, Jocko. Will you sober up and talk?
I could do that easily. I've done it 2 or 3 times, and it's no trick at all. But I refuse because it's a vulgar display of willpower.
Will you stop, Jocko?
You know, Patsy, there are only 2 things that could cause my downfall. Whiskey or women. I'm not particular. You find a nice old widow, and I'll quit this stuff.
All right.
Some plump old party with a memory as vivid as my own. Preferably somebody rich enough to convince me the lines in her face weren't put there by worry.
Oh, stop it, will you?
Patsy, I'll allow you to motivate my dissent, but I will not permit you to bring it to a halt. I apologize for interrupting. Go ahead.
What do you know about flowers?
Oh, I think they're pretty on a woman's shoulder, but I suppose that's mixed devotion. Why?
Well, I'm going to need your help, Jocko. There's a dead guy out on Clay Street, and Hellman's campaigning for me.
How do the flowers fit in?
A geranium plant. The guy was poisoned with a needle in the box. I took the plant up there to a woman.
Oh, a clumsy approach. Why a geranium plant?
It's a mixed-up story. I got hired in Noonan's bar to pick it up this afternoon at Post and Kearney. I got gumshoed all the way up Post Street and hit by a car at Maiden Lane.
You looked bent when you walked in.
I took it out to this address, and I gave it to a dying woman. Now she's disappeared, and Hellman's after me for the dead guy on her floor. Oh, I need some help, Jocko. I got to find a way out of this.
Well, you passed up a golden opportunity when that car hit you.
That's one of the places you come in. Now, here's the license. I want you to hop down and check the registration, will you?
What else?
Find out who runs that flower stand at the corner of Post and Kearney. Now, if you get back in time, I can check tonight. Tag by my place. I'll either be there or I'll leave a message.
Where are you going?
To find a woman.
That seems like a peculiar way to handle a crisis.
Well, I got to find the gal that started me out on this.
Patsy, I wish you'd forget about women.
And I wish you'd forget about whiskey.
Yes, we both have our problems. Except I enjoy one safeguard that you don't. At least I can look at the label and tell how old it is. Good night, lover.
Well, I got out of there and I went by Noonan's place. I asked him if he knew the girl in there last night. He said after 45, a man forgets about a woman's face, so I checked that lead off and started on the other girl. I hit all the cab stands out near Clay Street, and I finally found a hack that picked her up. It was about 4 o'clock, he said. She had luggage and rode over to Janet Street on Telegraph Hill, but he couldn't remember the address at the best rates in town, so I checked off that one, too. From here on, it was going to be a rough ride. I didn't know where to dig. I might as well have been out looking for a stick with one end. Well, I could try one more thing. I went by to search the Clay Street joint. It was a dirty room, and the geranium hadn't helped. There was a sweet odor and a thick, dusty cloud all over the place. It was like going to sleep in a bag of an old vacuum cleaner. There wasn't anything there that could help, and on my way out, I heard footsteps. I snapped off the light and waited. The door opened slowly. I couldn't see her face, but I knew it was the girl from Noonan's. Turn on the light and you'll see your friends.
Well, Mr. Novak.
Sit down. Let's talk.
In here? Why don't we drop by a gymnasium and get some fresh air?
We can start with your name.
It's Evie. Say your piece, Mr. Novak. I've run out of $50 bills.
Yeah, that's the way it is with my patients. Who killed the guy?
I don't know, Patsy. I can narrow it down to one county for you, but after that you'll have to do your own sorting.
The police think I did it.
Maybe you did. You look big enough to carry the load. I don't care, Patsy. I'm not going to weep. I've got about 3 tiers left, and he isn't high enough on the list to rate one.
Who was he? And how'd you find out he was dead?
There's generally a dirty rim in the washbowl. His name was Charles Dowd. Don't worry about him. He was a small-time guy at the fast music.
Well, I'm going to worry about him because Homicide's worried about him.
Then worry in a calm way, Patsy. If you do it that way, I'll help.
Sit down. Now, look, lady, you better help out or I'll lose your teeth for you.
Patsy, you're tough. And everything, I guess.
Who runs that flower stand?
It wouldn't help. When he gave you that geranium, there was nothing wrong.
For $50, there had to be something wrong.
It wasn't full of poison. I know it was in there, and it wasn't poison. Somebody made a switch up here.
What happened to the girl?
I don't know. Relax. You're going to use up all that nice energy.
Look, sis, you can haul in those long legs and give me some answers.
I'm going to haul them in long enough to ask a few questions. My turn now, Patsy. Back over toward the door. You can talk on your way.
Yeah, you look good with a gun.
You made a deal with George. I want to hear about it, Novak.
I don't even know George. If he's got a part, you just dealt him in.
I'm too old for fairy tales, Patsy. George got to you and found out about that geranium box. It couldn't have happened any other way.
Sorry, lady.
Remember, you're nothing to me, Novak. You're $50 worth of muscle. You're $50, and I'll spend you fast.
Go easy. You're going to break open a seam. I don't know your boy, George, and I can forget you, too.
You can do it while you're talking. I came a long way, Patsy. Too far to toss it over for a mail-order bum. You're just a passing pair of pants to me, and I'll throw you away faster than a wad of gum.
Now's your chance, baby. Come on.
Oh, let go. You're hurting my shoulder.
Relax. You're not going to have one in a minute. Come on, drop it. Now, reach down for that gun, and I'll jam you in the basement faster than a ton of coal.
All right.
Now, let's hear you talk.
I would, Patsy, but you're not listening.
That's what happens when you don't watch the door. Somebody falls in love with the back of your head. I didn't even have a chance to see who hit me. I don't know what good it would have done unless you're the kind of a guy who keeps a scrapbook on those things. When I woke up, I had company. He was taking a nap, too, only his was going to last longer. It was the little guy with the cane. He tailed me right to the end. He was lying there with his mouth open and a bunch of pink gum showing as if he was trying to pick up a few bucks with a toothpaste ad. I was still groggy, and I couldn't see around the room, but I could hear a slow, steady squeaking sound. I turned my head, and Hellman was sitting in a rocking chair. He looked as happy as a choir boy on Christmas Eve.
You have a good sleep, Novak?
Oh, why don't they move the morgue down here?
Yeah, I guess you ran out of poison.
Why don't you go away, Hellman?
Home, maybe, huh?
I don't owe your wife anything, so I'll wish that.
Who's the guy?
I don't know.
You looked chummy when I got here.
I don't know, Hellman. He followed me all over Post Street this afternoon. Check him yourself.
I did. There's nothing on him.
I'll bet his gold fillings are gone now.
Your trial run was a guy named Charles Dowd.
I know.
He was arrested in 1942 on suspicion of espionage.
He's in business again. A whole bunch of them are, and the kicker has something to do with that geranium plant.
What bunch?
These dead guys and a lot of others on the same schedule. It's that geranium plant. It all started at Post and Kearney. You better check that florist stand.
Don't you ever get tired, Novak?
Huh?
We checked the florist stand at Post and Kearney. The answer's no.
Did you talk to the guy?
No, because there is no florist stand at Post and Kearney.
You're crazy, Hellman. I got a geranium plant there this afternoon.
There's no florist stand at Post and Kearney. If you got a geranium, it was grown out of a crack in the sidewalk.
I left Hellman standing there over the dead man. The little guy was looking up at Hellman with a dull, bored look like an usher in a burlesque house. I was sure now there was something about that geranium I'd missed. If I could find the string and pull it, the whole thing would unravel. The questions were piling up, and there was only one answer. Who got to that box and made a switch? Well, it was close to 11 when I got back to my apartment. Jocko was in the kitchen working on an experiment.
Ah, Patsy, I'm drinking to your memory. I'm making up for cheap booze with extra sentiment.
What'd you find out?
You were mixed up. There is no flower stand at Kearney and Post.
Now, look, I've been through all that once. It was Post and Kearney. I couldn't have made a mistake.
Oh, anybody can confuse a street. It can be done easily. I once confused 2 whole suburbs.
Yeah, all right.
I boycotted a bar in Alameda for months before I found out they gave me the Mickey in San Carlos.
Now, look, I know what I did, Jocko. Maybe the flower stand moved. Maybe it was never there before. But today it was at Post and Kearney. How about that license number?
The car is registered in the name of George Langley. Who's he?
He rented the murder room, and he's mixed up in a switch on that geranium plant.
What kind of switch?
I don't know. But whatever it was, George did it. When it left that stand, there was something else in it besides a poison needle. Everybody knew it. The girl and the little guy with a cane, and probably the guy that drove that car.
They switched plans?
No, they changed. Yeah, I guess he could have done that too, huh?
Was the man with the cane behind you when you got hit by the car?
Yeah, I think you're right, Jocko.
He wasn't trying to kill you. In the confusion, the man with the cane switched plants on you.
Oh, Jocko, you're an angel. I'm going to do something for you someday.
You already have. I charged this bottle of whiskey to you.
Yeah, Novak talking.
I got news for you.
Mine's good, too. That poison needle plant was engineered by the little guy with the cane.
We identified him. His fingerprints match an espionage agent called George Langley.
Well, he was due any minute.
There's nothing else on him except he lived in a place up on Janet Street.
So it happened that way.
Huh?
That's where the other geranium is, Hellman. You better get up there before they ring down the curtain. That other plant's going to draw all the boys and girls.
What does that prove?
Nothing, except you haven't got any business bothering a flower unless you're a bee. Well, you never know how the cards are going to fall, but when it's a wild game like Red Dog, whichever way they fall, it's going to hurt. And the last card's the one that breaks your back. So when Hellman hung up, I grabbed a cab and rushed out to Janet Street. It's a little short street draped down the side of Telegraph Hill like a torn ribbon. When Hellman pulled up at the top of the hill, I met him, and we started down to George Langley's address. Hellman opened the front door, and as we started into the bedroom, we ran into a traffic jam.
I'm sorry.
Hello, Evie. This is Hellman from Homicide.
I don't have time now, Patsy.
That's all you got, baby. Grab her bag there, Hellman.
Patsy, you're crazy.
Open her bag, Hellman. That's what they're all after. There's the geranium over by the window.
Let's have the bag, lady.
You're all too grabby. I'll take it. Come on, Evie.
Who's this guy?
A pixie, Hellman. He's the guy that sold me the flower down at Post and Kearney.
I'm sorry you got mixed up, Novak, but I'm short on regrets tonight. Give me the bag, Evie.
Go easy. We're going to get in too deep.
You're in up to your nostrils now, baby. The bag. I want that piece of paper.
You don't need a gun, Gerard.
That's up to you, Evie. You double-crossed me, and I'm too old for a new set of tricks.
That's the way it had to be, Gerard. You can see that. When George cut in, there was nothing else to do. It was high man in, low man out.
You're out there, and I want the bag.
Stay away from me, Jerry.
Give me time. I'll get far away.
I'm going to hang on to it. Stay away, Jerry.
I hear you, but that's all, baby.
Give me a hand, Patsy.
You're going to need more than that, Angel.
Help me to the couch.
Sure. Come on. There you are.
Thanks, Patsy. You didn't owe me that.
I can't take it back now.
How's Gerard?
He bleeds big.
I wasn't so tired to laugh and laugh.
No, I wouldn't do that, Angel. You're going to be there in time to hear the echo. What's in the bag?
A formula. One other thing, Pat.
Yeah?
One other thing.
What'd she say?
I don't know, Hellman. She took it with her.
Where does that leave us?
Short one girl. She's in the apartment or on her way up.
Don't look too hard, Mr. Novak.
How many more are there?
She's the big act. How do your friends look, sweetheart?
They look the way they should. Oh. They watched me get sick. They didn't do anything about it. They sat around waiting for the last ounce of blood to dry up.
You better go with Hellman.
Please take me while you have a chance. Take me. No.
Yeah, you're more than ready.
Oh, I think they look wonderful. They let me work for years. They let me get this way. Then they sat around to listen to my heartbeat.
Hellman was confused. He finally got the story off the girl in a hospital bed. All 5 of them had worked together once, gathering government information, but when the big order came, double-cross set in like an epidemic. They were out after a formula. The dying girl had one half, and the other half was in that geranium plant. It came off the boat and went to that phony flower stand. Evie and Gerard were afraid to deliver it themselves, so they hired me to do it. The sick girl was in on another frame. She tipped off Langley, and he worked that hit and run with Dowd, only he forgot to tell Dowd about the poison needle. When Dowd was dead, the girl checked out for Langley's place. Between them, they had the formula, but they got into beef, so she killed him. She came back to plant a phony lead for Evie, and that's how I got sapped. Evie tumbled and headed for Langley's place. When she left, the girl planted Langley next to me in that room and then went back to watch Evie and Gerard in that overtime match. I guess she was too sick to care one way or the other. Well, Hellman asked only one question. How come 5 such bad people ever got together in one shuffle? I don't know, except most people are full of a lot of good and a lot of bad. The day we met them, all the bad was showing.
The Armed Forces Radio Service has just brought you Pat Novak for Hire, starring Jack Webb. Pat Novak is produced by William P. Russo. Jocko Madigan is played by Tudor Owen. Inspector Hellman is played by Raymond Burr. Music was composed and conducted by Basil Adlam. Be with us again next week when over most of these same stations we'll bring you Pat Novak for Hire. This is the United States Armed Forces Radio Service, the voice of information and education.
Welcome back. Well, in some ways, this episode marks a bit of a new low for Pat Novak. Because in this episode, he was knocked out by a half-dead woman in the throes of what sounds to be a very terrible bout of pneumonia. But that didn't stop her from getting the jump on Pat Novak. Of course, this was the first episode we've heard with a spies element. But it's one we're going to hear, I think, throughout the rest of the series. It does add a little extra level of danger or importance to the adventure. So, all right, well, that's another great episode of Pat Novak in the books. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, bringing you this week's episode of Let George Do It. If you have any comments, please feel free to email me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Please cast your vote for the show over at podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And if you've not yet filled out our survey, please do so, survey.greatdetectives.net. I got a comment here from Jennifer regarding the episode of Let George Do It, the tunnel project. She said the plot felt very familiar. Sure enough, I checked my recordings of The Shadow and found out why. The Sand Dog Murders, original air date November 26, 1939, involved protagonist Lamont Cranston, a.k.a. The Shadow, and his girlfriend investigating a similar problems with delays in tunnel construction. The bad guy in the Shadow episode tried to murder Cranston in the same way described in Let George, by bringing him up too quickly and inducing the bends. There are other striking similarities. I wonder if the plot was reused since both The Shadow and Let George were shows on the Mutual Network. I've done a little online research and haven't found any writers in common with both shows. Thought you'd be interested in the tidbit since you remarked on air about the Sandhog details in the plot. Check out the Shadow episode if you get a chance. And she recommends shadowsanctum.net for more information on the radio show. including plot-by-plot synopses. Well, in answer to the question, I'll be honest that I don't know. I actually went and listened to the episode of The Shadow, and I saw some very strong similarities. I also saw some pretty big differences. So I don't think it was a situation where they reused the script. It's really hard to tell with old-time radio shows as to who actually wrote a given show. Oftentimes, the writers weren't mentioned on the show, and there are scant resources available to identify them. So, I think it's certainly possible. It didn't sound like they were reusing the script. If there was any connection between the shows, because we have to remember the shows were about 8.5 years apart in airing. It'd be one of those things where where the writer heard a radio show, an episode of The Shadow, and that gave him or her an idea that they later used on Let George Do It. Sounds more like what would have happened. Because, like I said, I thought there were some key differences in the villain's motivation in each series, even with the similarities. Sorry about that. Had to pause to cough. Well, let's go ahead. We will get into today's episode of Let George Do It. This one is called The Island on Tuxedo Lake. You'll also see this episode, just because I know some people buy old-time radio, by the name of The Selby Friendship Club, or also Island in the Lake. 3 different names, just one episode. Before we do get started, though, I do want to encourage you, if you need any web hosting in the new year, you want to establish a new business, or buy an extra domain for your business, like we did when we purchased Johnny Dollar Air, remember our web host, 1&1. That's at hosting.greatdetectives.net for 1&1, the world's #1 web host. So get great hosting as well as support the great detectives of old time radio. But let's go ahead and get into today's episode, The Island on Tuxedo Lake.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invite you to Let George Do It. Another adventure of George Valentine.
Personal notice. Danger is my stock and trade. If it's something you can't handle and it must remain strictly confidential, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Dear Mr. Valentine, I've worked very hard to get what I want out of life. A successful marriage. A husband who's highly respected in the community. Everything. Now, by one of her foolish whims, my own sister threatens to destroy all that. She's been missing for 2 days and must be found without any publicity. That's why I'm calling on you.
Calling on you instead of the police. Phone me this afternoon when my husband is sure not to be here. Tuxedo Lake, 673. I'll be at your office any time you say. Signed, Edith Wilder.
Tuxedo Lake, huh? That little body of water's become very fashionable lately.
Oh, I don't want to sound grasping, George, but if the Wilders live on the exclusive island in Tuxedo Lake...
Yeah, I know, Brooksy. The fee could be a thing of beauty. All right, call Mrs. Wilder for an appointment at the office tomorrow morning.
After thinking it over, Mr. Valentine, I decided to bring Angela's husband with me.
Oh, Edith, you shouldn't have hired this man's services. Angela is free to do anything she chooses now.
Leave this to me, Walter. This is my sister's husband, Mr. Philliston.
Philliston?
How do you do?
My assistant, Miss Brooks.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Do you mind if she takes some notes? So far, I'm in the dark about this whole thing.
Anytime you're ready.
It'll take just a few not very pleasant words. Angela's disappeared again. This time there's every reason to believe it'll cause a scandal none of us will ever live down.
Oh, Edith.
Mrs. Wilder, just how old is your sister?
Well, she's 2 years younger than I am, 42. You'll get all the information you need, and I'm sure you'll know just how to proceed.
You may as well tell him the whole truth, Edith, as long as you've gone this far.
Walt.
Do you want me to put all this down, George?
No, Brooksy. I think we'll get to the point right now. Look, Mrs. Wilder, what about the whole truth?
Oh, I wanted to avoid that.
You see, Mr. Valentine, I'm Angela's third husband.
Take it down from here, Brooksy.
Right, George.
The third man she's married through a matrimonial agency.
And now corresponding with another man before she's even divorced from Walter.
Oh, I see.
No matter what happens, it must never come out. You don't know how people are out at Tuxedo Lake. Even if my own husband found this out...
When I put the word confidential in my ad, Mrs. Wilder, I meant it. Now, Mr. Philliston, are you sure your wife was corresponding with another man?
Yes, I found a letter from him and his picture in a bureau drawer. I tore it up right in front of her face and threw it in the fire.
Well, that wasn't very smart. It might have helped you get a divorce without paying through the nose.
Oh, I realize that now.
What do you mean by that?
Last Monday, I had lunch with Angela. She said she'd settle for $20,000 in cash in our house on Tuxedo Island.
And you mean you just shelled out $20,000 like that?
Yes, that same afternoon. It seemed the easiest way. She threatened to sue me for desertion if I left her and take all the money I have if she took me to court and tied up my contracts. I'm a builder, you know, and it would cost me much more than that.
I just want you to bring Angela back here before she causes a scandal that will wreck all our lives.
Mr. Philliston, would you recognize the man in that picture if you ever saw him?
I can't be sure. I suppose so. I was so upset I don't even remember the name if there was one.
George, don't you think we ought to get the name of that marriage club?
I ought to know that. That's the way I met her. It's the Selby Friendship Club. Meet your companion for life.
The important thing is this, Mr. Valentine. Walter is staying with me and my husband on the island. So far, we only told Richard that Angela is off visiting some friends. It must remain that way.
Okay, I'll do my best. You'd better give me the keys to your place, Philliston. Maybe I can pick up a lead there.
Here you are. That's that. When a woman is just over 40, well over 60...
This is no time for you to feel sorry for yourself, Walter.
Yeah, Brooksy, take these keys. I'll meet you on the landing at Tuxedo Lake in a couple of hours. Then we'll go over to Mr. Philliston's house.
Okay, George.
Well, what are you going to do, Mr. Valentine?
Pay a visit to the Selby Friendship Club. See what I can find out about Angela's unknown suitor. Now, Mr. Selby, I'm afraid I'm not mistaken.
I can't believe it, Mr. Valentine. Not Angela Kramer Holloway, Philliston.
Amazing how you remember the names of all her husbands. But, of course, you've been providing her with them for years.
Young man, I don't like your cynical tone.
So sorry. I guess I got out of the wrong side of the bed this morning.
The Friendship Club serves a very definite purpose.
Yeah, I know.
Bringing together people with identical interests has proven much more successful than aimless courtships and haphazard romances. Our motto is meet your companion for life.
Such as Mrs. Angela Kramer Holloway Philliston.
Of course, there are exceptions.
All right,
but...
let's skip the spiel, Cupid. It stands to reason that if Angela got the romantic urge again, she'd patronize the Friendship Club, which gave us such excellent service in the past.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, sir. I know of no correspondence between Mrs. Philliston and any of my clients.
You sure about that?
In fact, Mr. Valentine, I tore up Angela's card in our files. After a year, I assumed she was blissfully united with that nice elderly Mr. Philliston.
Well, don't get a nervous breakdown, friend. You can always type another card. Now, look. You put out a bulletin, don't you, listing the different eager beavers bent on matrimony?
Yes, indeed, once every month.
Well, if I could get a hold of your latest bulletin, maybe Mr. Philliston could spot the man he saw in that letter.
Unfortunately, the new bulletin won't be off the press at the Bixby printers for another week. Then I shall be glad to let you see one.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, don't mention it. But if you think I'm just one of those fly-by-night marriage bureaus, you're sadly mistaken. I've spent 30 years bringing together people who thought they didn't have a soulmate in the world.
Goodbye, Mr. Selby.
Well, George, looks as though this trip to Philliston's house wasn't worth the boat ride across the lake.
Yeah, Angel. Everything neat as a pin inside there. Not a sign of violence anywhere.
Well, we don't have much to work on, do we?
Well, I thought I could get something out of Selby. That was a complete washout.
Well, George.
Yeah, Brooksy?
May I say something? I mean, as a woman.
I wouldn't have you say it any other way.
Oh. Well, did you notice Mrs. Philliston's closets?
Oh. Like any other woman's, why?
Stuffed to overflowing with furs, lined with dozens of dresses and racks of shoes.
Look, this is no time to comment on feminine extravagance, Angel.
Yeah, but how about feminine psychology?
Huh?
Well, members of our sex just don't leave all those frills and fripperies behind, especially when we're supposed to be running off with another man.
Yeah. Hey, wait a minute, Brooksy. You got something.
Mm-hmm.
Look, get to a phone.
Okay, I saw one in the living room.
Call the Wilders. If Edith doesn't want to walk over here, ask her for a quick inventory of her sister's things.
Of course. She'll know if Angela took anything with her.
How do you like that? She can't just be missing. Nothing as simple...
ever is, my friend.
Hey, where did you come from?
Who are you, one of Angela's friends? It's hard to tell. Sometimes they're young, sometimes they're old.
What have you got to do with Angela?
Oh, nothing. I'm just her son.
Son?
So you see, I speak with authority. Can I get you a drink?
Well, if you're her son, aren't you at all concerned about what's happened to her since Monday?
I haven't been able to sleep one single night.
Now, that's obvious.
I have the greatest admiration for my mother and her assorted husbands. I'm Bud Kramer. I spring from Mama's #1 marriage club bargain. Are you going to be the fourth, Papa?
The name's Valentine. I'm here to see if I can find your mother.
Get out.
Hey, now, wait a minute.
I said get out. If you never find her, it'll be the best break I ever got. This house will belong to me, and I'll come into some money.
If you don't stop sticking your chin in my face, son, I'm going to have to do something about it.
Oh, it's fine to have a mother you can respect. You know, you can always help her with her letters when she decides it's time for another husband. Well, didn't you hear me? Get out of here!
Let's not be a problem, huh?
Let go of my arm.
You'd better go upstairs and go to bed. You've had a busy night. You've been getting around today, too. Go on, sleep it off.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll sing myself to sleep with Brahms' lullaby. Or maybe I'll make it Mother McCree. Be sure to find my mother, will it? Tell her how much a little boy needs her.
George, who was that? What does he mean?
We'll get to him later. What did Edith say?
Well, it's the strangest thing, darling.
Yeah, what is?
Edith says apparently Angela didn't take a stitch of clothing with her. And you know that blue plaid dress hanging over the chair in her bedroom?
Yeah, I saw it.
Well, Walter said that was the one she wore the day he gave her the $20,000 and she disappeared.
With a towel around her or a bathing suit? Oh, no, Brooksy, this doesn't whack up at all.
Yeah, I know.
It's beginning to look more like something for homicide, not missing persons.
Well, Lieutenant Riley is just going to love us when we present him with this case.
Well, of course, we're not sure yet. Brooksy, I'm going to take one more stab at keeping this confidential.
Meaning?
A visit to Bixby Printers. I'd like to get a preview of next month's bulletin of the Friendship Club. I know Selby's bulletin hasn't come out yet, Mr. Bixby, but could I take a look at the advance proofs?
Well, I suppose I could do that for you. They're right over here.
Oh, we'll have them back in the morning. We just want someone to take a look at.
I take it, Mr. Valentine, you're from the police.
Well, let's just say I'm working with the police.
Well, okay, just so long I don't lose any time on the job. Yeah, they're right here in this file. I just had them out a couple hours ago. Selby called up and wanted something ripped out before he went to press.
George, that would be after you talked to him.
Okay, I know. Look, Bixby, have you got that part Selby wanted left out?
Was there a picture of a man in it?
No, as I remember it, it was the listing of a lady. She must have changed her mind. Happens all the time. Sent the picture back to Mr. Selby by messenger. But here's the copy that went with it, if you want to see it.
Yeah. Friendship Club member number 40. Young, attractive divorcee. Amiable, fun-loving, anxious to live life to the fullest. Major interests, good books, cooking, and so forth and so on.
Well, that's a dead end.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Bixby, we'll have these back to you in the morning first thing. I'll get back, Brooksy.
You know, I'm beginning to feel like a Tuxedo Lake commuter. It's all very well to be exclusive, George, but I'd hate to make this trip to the island every time I came home late.
Yeah, it is kind of dark, Angel. But that green light way up ahead, that's the Philistine dock.
Hey, what happens if Mr. Philistine doesn't recognize any of these Romeos in the bulletin as Angela's boyfriend?
Well, suspecting what we do, Brooksy, we'll just have to dump the case in Lieutenant Riley's lap tomorrow morning.
We won't be giving you much to work on, except our suspicions.
And the fact that when a woman walks around with $20,000 in cash, she just naturally... Hey, Brooksy, that motorboat coming toward us.
Well, they can see us. They've got their searchlight right on us.
Well, I can't see a thing with that glare.
Turn, George, turn. They're coming right at us.
I'm trying. What's the matter with you? Oh, can't you see it? Brooksy!
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Meanwhile, a word about preparedness and that summer holiday. If you're planning a vacation trip with the family car, here's a suggestion from a whole group of service folks, the men at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations. As soon as you can, stop in. They'll be glad to give your car a troubleshooting vacation check. It's no fun to be way out in the middle of nowhere with a broken fan belt or sparkless spark plugs or a radiator that wants to be a geyser. To guard against that kind of mishap on your vacation, get a bumper-to-bumper inspection before you leave. Comes the day you're ready to start out, make sure your car has its two best highway friends, Chevron Supreme Gasoline and RPM Motor Oil. Wherever your vacation takes you in the West, just keep in mind that the men at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations say and mean, we'll take better care of your car. And now back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. A small outboard motorboat heading toward the island in Tuxedo Lake. Suddenly, out of the darkness roars a powerful motorboat, its searchlight blinding George and Claire. A sudden, terrifying crash as the boat upsets, leaving its shaken occupants to struggle ashore. And now, a few minutes later, in front of the fireplace in the Philliston home, George and Claire are trying to puzzle out just what they might have stumbled on in this strange case of Angela Philliston. Angela, still married but corresponding with the matrimonial club, and now missing for days.
Oh, George, this fire feels wonderful.
Yeah, it sure does. Well, there's one thing sure. Whoever just tried to feed us to the fish is right here on Tuxedo Lake.
Yeah, but what is it we know that we don't know we know?
Oh, Brooksy, at this point, I don't know from nothing. The three people might possibly want us out of the way are right here on this island. Bud Kramer, Angela's son, who hates his own mother.
Mr. Philliston, who got such a raw deal from Angela the one and only time he used the services of the Friendship Club.
Yeah, that's right. And Sister Edith, who said she'd do anything to keep a breath of scandal from the swank shores of Tuxedo Island.
All this doesn't exactly give you a comfortable feeling, does it?
Brooksy, before we see Lieutenant Riley in the morning, we're going to check every boat tied up around this lake.
George, where you going?
Hey, come here, Brooksy.
George, the Philliston boat.
Yeah, the Angela. Tied up right here in front of the house, as innocent as you please. And look at this big dent right here on her nose. All the paint scraped off.
Well, it looks more and more like it has to be one of those three.
Yeah.
Hey,
What the...
there's somebody out there in the lake, George.
Oh, what a night. Just hope whoever was using this boat tonight left the keys in it.
Valentine, I've told you, I went into the village to celebrate.
Sounds funny to me, Bud.
What have you got to celebrate with your mother missing?
Well, that's what I was celebrating.
Let's skip that routine.
I was feeling pretty good, so I thought I'd swim across the lake.
Clothes and all?
Seemed like a good idea at the time. Suddenly I had to prove to myself that I was a reasonable facsimile of a man.
Yeah.
Guess I'm not in very good shape.
How about this version, Bud? You tied up the Angela after you plowed into us, and you were swimming away from the island toward the shore.
Then you'd be in the clear.
I don't know what you two are talking about.
We'll see about that later. Now, you go upstairs to your room and stay there.
Look, you can't order me around.
I said go to your room.
Yeah, go to your room, buddy. When I was a kid, whenever I was in the way, Angela would say, go to your room, buddy. My adoring mother. Fun-loving, anxious to live life to the fullest. Well, where's my wondering mother tonight?
I can't help feeling sorry for that boy, George.
To tell you the truth, I wasn't listening to him very hard.
What?
These red flagstones in front of the fireplace.
Yeah, what about them?
Red stains on red flagstones wouldn't show up very clearly ordinarily, but the light of the fire brings them out.
Huh?
Look at them, Brooksy.
Is that blood?
Could be. This might be the sign of violence we didn't find when we went over this place before.
Well, if you're right, Lieutenant Riley will certainly have something to work on when we come back here in the morning.
And if I'm right, Brooksy, it means Angela Philliston was murdered.
All right, Valentine. Where are these bloodstains you dragged me out here to see?
But, George, they're gone.
Wait a minute, what is this? Someone scrubbed these flagstones clean during the night.
You don't say.
Oh, what a metal midget I turned out to be. I should have stayed right here while you went back to town, Brooksy.
But how could anybody know what we found?
Oh, well, at least I'm bright enough to know the answer to that one. Somebody knew every move we made last night.
Ah! Stop sounding like a bee picture. Next you'll be talking about trap doors and hidden passages.
Oh, that's not fair, Lieutenant
I
Riley.
get dragged out of bed. I bring the best men in the department out here with me. They dredge the lake, and all they're coming up with is some undernourished trout.
All right, Riley. Give me a chance to think, will you?
Hayes here. Look at him. One of the best men in our lab, crawling around on his knees like a charwoman, looking for something that isn't here.
I'll be through here in a minute, Lieutenant.
Oh, I can't thank you enough for that bracing, invigorating trip across the lake, Valentine, but I've got better things to do with my time.
Lieutenant, somebody tried to run us down on the lake last night, and he was using Philliston's boat.
Yeah.
Lieutenant.
Yeah, what is it, Hayes?
These red particles between the cracks in the floor here. They might mean something.
All right, be careful with those, Hayes. Very careful.
Got them in this bottle. You want to initial the label, Lieutenant, in case we ever need it for evidence?
Yeah, sure. But just remember this, Valentine. If this proves to be ketchup from the weenie roast they had in this fireplace, I'll... So help me, I'll do it!
What do you say we wait and see, Lieutenant? It may not be ketchup at all. Just barbecue sauce. The kind that's too hot to handle.
Well, Valentine was right. It was blood, all right. Human blood.
Angela's? I don't understand. Who'd want to kill her?
Oh, I can't believe it.
We found it's the same blood type as your sister's, Mrs. Wilder.
Oh, no. No.
Now, that's not going to help at all, Mrs. Wilder.
Oh, I know I may have sounded selfish and petty. Just thinking of the scandal Angela might cause, but now that it looks as though my sister was murdered, none of that matters.
All right, folks, all right. Let's settle down and do some straight talking, huh? Mr. Philliston.
Yes, Lieutenant.
Well, this is the way it shapes up. Your wife never left the island. If she did, she was carried out after she was murdered in front of that fireplace. And we'll find the body if we have to dig up every inch around Tuxedo Lake.
Lieutenant, I admit I wanted to hate Angela when I found out what she was doing. But I'll give everything I own to find the man who killed her.
Mr. Valentine, you were trying to track down the man Angela was corresponding with. What did you find out at that friendship club?
I did have some pictures for Mr. Philliston to identify. But they're all at the bottom of the lake now.
Yes, very convenient.
About the $20,000, Mr. Philliston, that you were supposed to have given your wife.
No, what about it?
We checked into all of your accounts. There's no record of any withdrawal like that.
Well, I took that money out of a safe deposit box.
Well, that's not where most people keep that much money, is it, Mr. Philliston?
Oh, no, but being in the building game, it pays to be able to put your hands on ready cash.
All right, that's your story.
Oh, I know what you're thinking, but you're wrong. Maybe it was foolish to resort to a marriage club, but I was lonely. She never brought me any happiness, but I never hurt Angela.
Well, we're going to stay right here at headquarters because we got a lot of things to talk about. I'm still checking on Bud Kramer's story. All he does is prattle about his amiable, fun-loving mother.
Oh, he's still at it, huh? Look, Brooksy.
Yes, George.
You stick right here. Lieutenant, you don't mind if I duck out for a few minutes, do you?
No, I won't waste time asking you why.
Oh, but I'll tell you. There's a little angle to this case I overlooked. But I'm going to take care of it right now. Come on, Selby, give. You were holding out on me before, weren't you?
Well, I answered all of your questions to the best of my knowledge.
You mean you just told me as much as you thought I should know. But now you got to open up, Selby. This is a murder case, and the police are in on it.
Oh, dear.
Well, come on, give.
All right. You understand, I had to think of my business, what it might sound like if Angela's disappearance ever got into the papers. You know
Never mind that, Cupid. Get to the point.
Yes, of course. I suppose I should have told you that Angela was the second wife of Walter Philliston met through the Friendship Club.
Well, surprise.
That's the truth.
Some names, Selby, some facts.
Well, the name of Philliston's first wife was Frida Merritt. She was a widow, pretty well off.
Yeah?
They were married 5 years ago, and then she...
Then what?
She was out alone fishing about 2 years ago. Her boat turned over, and she was drowned. But it was an accident, Mr. Valentine. The police said it was.
Uh-huh. Better get your hat, Selby.
Why, where are we going?
Police headquarters. I want you to repeat that story to Lieutenant Riley. I think we found the answer to just what's been happening over there on Tuxedo Island.
Well, thanks, Mr. Selby. Now, what about this, Philliston?
I suppose I should have known this would have come out anyway.
Why didn't you tell us before that you got your first wife through Selby's Friendship Club?
Yes, you made us believe you were just a lonely man. And that was the first time you ever did anything like that.
Does any man ever want to admit that he was played for a fool twice?
What's that supposed to mean?
Frida and I weren't too happy after a while.
And she died. Well, believe me, we're going to check into that accident, and much more thoroughly this time, now that we know what we're looking for.
That was an accident.
And what about Angela?
Oh, I don't know what happened to Angela after I gave her the $20,000.
Of which we find no record.
I'm sorry, Mr. Philliston, but I had to tell them what I knew.
Oh, leave me alone.
Oh, I do hope there'll be as little mention of the Friendship Club as possible in this affair.
Is that all you've got to worry about, Mr. Selby?
Of course, Miss Brooks. I've spent years and years building up
Okay, Selby, okay. You can beat it now. We'll call you when we need you.
Yes, Lieutenant. Of course.
Just a minute, Lieutenant. Is it your usual practice to let a murderer walk out of your office?
What are you talking about?
You mean Selby?
What kind of a joke is this supposed to be? I told you all I knew.
Let me in on this, Valentine.
Me too.
I'd certainly like to know what you're talking about.
You had me on the hook for a long time, Selby, until I started remembering a few things.
Lieutenant, he doesn't know what he's saying.
Well, suppose we listen anyway.
And stop squirming, Mr. Lonely Hearts. You can't talk your way out of this. It's there in black and white.
Please, Mr. Valentine, tell us what you know.
When I first walked into your office, Selby, you said you thought Mrs. Philliston was happily married.
Well, yes.
You said you even took a card out of the file and tore it up.
That's right.
But then why did you have her name listed in your new bulletin as a likely marriage prospect?
That's a lie.
Friendship Club member number 40, young, attractive divorcee, amiable, fun-loving, anxious to live life to the fullest.
Of course. That was a description of Angela. We never thought of it because we were looking for a man.
Those are the same words her son keeps repeating like a drunken parrot.
Words he could never forget, because they were the ones Angela always used when she was looking for a new husband.
That's the same way she described herself in the ad I answered.
Lieutenant, you don't
Save
believe...
it, Cupid. You just ran your business too well. And that's what's going to hang you.
George, I still don't understand what reason Selby had for killing Angela.
Because Cupid got double-crossed, Angel.
Double-crossed?
Yep. According to Riley, Selby had quite a little racket on the side. Like Angela, for instance.
Oh?
He saw she was getting restless with a man so much older than herself.
I see. So why not get a nice fat settlement from the old boy? The Friendship Club can always come up with a new husband.
They would have split that $20,000, Brooksy. But when she said, no, go, and if you do anything about it, I'll go to the police, he killed her and buried her body.
Selby didn't miss a trick, did he? Even to using Philliston's boat to run us down.
Well, he knew what the police would think when they learned about how he married the first Mrs. Philliston and how she died. Which, by the way, was an accident.
Oh, darling, I'm so glad. That we met in a nice, normal way.
Oh, yeah. A USO canteen. Yeah, I remember. You were one of the hostesses.
Yeah.
You walked up and said demurely, "What about it, soldier? Dance?"
Oh, yeah. Wasn't it beautiful?
Yeah. And then I said,
And that was that. After all, no girl could resist such a pretty compliment.
It's after 8 o'clock, and every minute counts. Mary's going to lead the promenade at the senior ball, if she ever gets there. Right now, she's with Roger in his car, and there's a big silence. Roger choked the engine and flooded the carburetor. Too bad. He should have used Chevron Supreme gasoline in his car. Special blending agents in this premium quality gasoline assure instant starts, speedy warm-up, powerful getaway in heavy traffic driving, fast starts, and all the power your car can handle wherever you're driving in the West. That's because Chevron Supreme is scientifically tailored to each different climate and altitude zone. Whether you're driving a new car or one that's many years old, you'll like the new get-up-and-go that Chevron Supreme gives your car. Ask for it tomorrow at any standard station or independent Chevron gas station where they say and mean, we'll take better care of your car. Next week, when you tune our way for another adventure of George Valentine, you'll hear...
Oh, Mr. Dimmick. What was that?
One of the many voices of darkness that echo through the tunnel of love.
Calm yourself, Claire.
But what's that up ahead?
Yeah, what is that dim light, Dimmick? Seems to be coming from the wall of the tunnel.
It looks like a man. Maybe he's in trouble. You better hurry.
Patience. We can travel only as fast as the water flows through the tunnel. It's like fate carrying us.
That man's got a gun in his hand.
And pointed right at us. Down on the boat, everybody. That guy means business.
Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Let George Do It stars Robert Bailey as George with Frances Robinson as Claire. Wally Mayer appears as Lieutenant Riley. Tonight's story was written by David Victor and Herbert Little Jr. and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Irene Tedrow as Edith, Paul McVeigh as Walter, Jack Edwards as Bud, Joe Forte as Selby, and Stanley Farrar as Bixby. The music is composed and conducted by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
And welcome back. This episode had some very interesting writing. This almost leaned probably as much as any Let George Do It episode, almost towards the hard-boiled. It wasn't quite that, but I think this came fairly close. A little more grumpy, agitated, going at him from George Valentine. And speaking of the change in the writing, you noticed at the end of the story that George says that he and Brooksy met when Brooksy was in the USO and George was in the service. That does run counter to the pilot episode where Brooksy met George going to work in the office. You can get away with continuity errors if the only thing that continuity's going against is the unaired pilot episode. Though the first few episodes we heard also did suggest that they hadn't known each other quite that long. Speaking of changes in the show, and I'll put this out there for anybody who's a long-time Let George Do It fan. Everybody out there, every site that does like a major index or little article on Let George Do It, will list Eddie Firestone who played Sonny as a recurring cast member. And one article I read said that he was there in the early episodes, and then he became just an occasional character. Well, between the episodes I purchased from off of RadioArchives.com, the ones that I've listened to on this program when we've been doing the podcast, as well as a few episodes of Let George Do It, I've just kind of snuck on the side. I've had to have listened to 50 episodes, and I have not heard another episode after those first, after the 1946-47 season featuring Sonny. So I'm wondering if you are a long-time Let George Do It fan, and you've heard Sonny after 1946, please let me know. Otherwise, I've got to reconsider whether the information on Eddie Firestone's worth including if he was only there for 4 episodes, after which it really just became about Brooksy and George. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, bringing you this week's episode of Sherlock Holmes. If you've got any comments, please feel free to email me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Please cast your vote over at Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And thanks to everyone who's filled out our listener survey. If you've not already, please fill it out, survey.greatdetectives.net. Speaking of Podcast Alley, we've got a very good comment that segues into our show. Great podcast, great pre-show commentary, and we need more Sherlock Holmes. Well, we definitely will definitely have Sherlock Holmes when we get the video up. We'll be including some Sherlock Holmes in the video extras that we do. One thing I would definitely agree on is we need more of the Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce episodes that are out there. Sadly, as I've mentioned, a lot of them got lost to the war, which is quite a shame because they did almost the entire Sherlock Holmes canon, and we are missing so many of those episodes. The episodes we'll play the next couple of weeks, they're not necessarily in the greatest of shape, but they are extremely, incredibly rare episodes that I trust you're going to enjoy. Now, we should mention, we talk about the Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce, Sherlock Holmes show as if it was just, one show, one continuous show running from 1939 to 46. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. It actually, of course, it began on the Blue Network in 1939, and it aired 39 to 40, and 40 to 41, and 41 to 42. And these were fairly short seasons. Over those 3 seasons, they did a grand total of just about 70 plus episodes. So this was almost like a modern TV season. And then when they were doing the radio show originally, they weren't constantly doing Sherlock Holmes movies at the same time. Rathbone and Bruce made 2 Sherlock Holmes movies that appeared in 1939, The Hound of the Baskervilles and The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. In 42, they began ramping up production of the remaining 12 Sherlock Holmes movies. So I would think it would be fair to speculate that that's part of the reason why the radio show it disappeared from the air for quite some time. It left the Blue Network in March of 1942 and didn't return for 14 months, and this time it was on a different network. And this part of this may have been the war, and we've talked about the general mood towards Sherlock Holmes as being something that was necessary. And so Rathbone and Bruce returned. However, these, after their first season, this was something where they were doing heavy-duty extras. They weren't taking summers off from doing Sherlock Holmes shows. So basically, at the same time that they were doing 12 Sherlock Holmes movies over 4 years, they were doing every single week a new Sherlock Holmes episode, all the way through 1945, when right after the war, they did take a pause for summer. And the sad thing is there are very few of these episodes in existence. And I think I think that there was definitely a very strong feeling that went behind that. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get back. This one is actually an Armed Forces Radio Services edition of Sherlock Holmes. This one comes from the middle of the run. This comes from May of 1944. This one is not, and I've been wrong before on this, but I double-checked, and this does not appear to be in the Sherlock Holmes canon. It's The Adventure of the Missing Bloodstains. Before we get started, I just want to remind you, a great deduction to make is that there are a lot of people saving money on airlines and making their travel plans for the new year. Where are they saving their money? A lot of people are saving money over at Priceline.com. Well, follow the clues, and remember to fly Johnny Dollar Air. That's JohnnyDollarAir.com. That's our affiliate link for Priceline.com. And when you book a flight on Priceline, or a hotel ticket, or a cruise, you not only get a great deal, but you also help support the great detectives of old-time radio. Well, without any further ado, let's get into The Missing Bloodstains.
Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes.
This rebroadcast is especially for the American Armed Forces and their allies. Now let's join Dr. Campbell as he enters Dr. Watson's study.
Here we are once again in Dr. Watson's study.
Come in, Mr. Campbell. Come in. Here, sit down and relax. You look a bit wilted, old fella.
Oh, yes, it's such a beautiful spring evening. I thought I'd walk over. In fact, it's so beautiful I dawdled most of the way, drinking in the warm air and the smell of things growing until suddenly I realized I was blame well going to be late if I didn't hurry. So I ran the last 3 blocks.
Yes, I know how it is. This lovely spring weather is certainly conducive to indolence. My household claim that when I go out to do the spring planting, I spend most of my time leaning on the spade, sniffing, and listening to the birds. Not an unpleasant way to pass the time of day, incidentally. Yes, a day like today is almost as relaxing as a Turkish bath. Which reminds me of a curious and gory experience that Holmes and I had in just such an establishment some years ago.
It sounds suspiciously like the gentleman who said bang. Oh, speaking of explosions.
Now, Mr. Campbell, you must never complain about the way that a storyteller begins his yarn. Anything is better than an abrupt beginning. Now, put me all out. Where was I?
In a Turkish bath, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yes, a Turkish bath. You were not mistaken. Yes, that's it. Well, now, to begin at the beginning, it was in the hectic, hair-raising, and I might even say the glorious days of the great battle of wits between Sherlock Holmes and the notorious Professor Moriarty.
What you might call a real battle of the Titans, eh, Doctor?
Indeed it was, Mr. Campbell. Things had been unusually hectic for Holmes for several months. Moriarty had been particularly active, and Holmes had had many sleepless nights. Finally, things had calmed down a bit, and I tried to persuade him to take a badly needed holiday. The net result being that he finally did agree to have an afternoon off and accompany me to a Turkish bath. As a matter of fact, both Holmes and I had a weakness for the Turkish bath. Over a smoke, in the pleasant latitude of the drawing room, I've often found him less reticent and more human than at any other time.
The heat melted his cast iron reserve, eh, Dr. Watson?
Only slightly, Mr. Gamble, only slightly. Well, as I was saying, on the upper floor of a certain Northumberland Avenue establishment, there is an isolated corner where two couches lie side by side, and it was on these that we were lying. Holmes had just shot his long, sinewy arm out of the towels which enveloped him and was fishing about in the inside pocket of his coat, which hung beside him.
Where did I put it? Where on earth did I put it? Oh, confound the thing. Watson. I forgot to bring my tobacco.
Oh, relax, Holmes. Just relax. Forget about tobacco. Forget Moriarty and relax. That's what we came in here for.
Burble, 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 burble. I am relaxed, my dear fellow. I want to smoke.
What about the burble? Nothing like the peace and seclusion of a Turkish bar.
Mr. Holmes. Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Hello? Gus, the steam room attendant seems to be paging you.
Oh, my goodness. Now what?
Has anyone seen Mr. Sherlock Holmes? Be in here, please.
Here I am, Gus. Here I am. What do you want? Come on.
Oh, Mr. Holmes. It's good I find you. There has been an accident, Mr. Holmes. A bad accident. It's Lord Canterbury. He's in his dressing room, covered with blood.
Oh. In that case, I fancy you want Dr. Watson, don't you? Not me.
I'll be with you in a minute, Gus.
Oh, no, not Dr. Watson. It's too late for you. He's dead.
Dead?
Stabbed in 6 places. Come and look at him, Mr. Holmes, please.
Dead? Dear me. All right. I'll come at once.
Good gracious me. What's all the commotion? Why can't we have a little peace and quiet around? What's the meaning of this, Gus? Why are these two persons talking at the top of their voices?
My dear whoever you are, I was never under the impression that the Olympia Baths were a church. Furthermore, my dear Mr. Never mind the name.
Tunbridge. Frederick Hubert Tunbridge, a Liberal leader in the present Parliament, which everyone knows and keeps abreast of the time.
My dear Mr. Tunbridge, I do not concern myself with trivialities. Furthermore, as I was saying before being so rudely interrupted, you may be interested to know that your hated rival, Lord Canterbury, the Conservative leader, with whom you are known to have publicly locked horns on several occasions.
What if I have? What's he done now, the old fool?
If you mean Lord Canterbury, he's done absolutely... Yes, he hasn't done anything, and probably never will again.
What are you blithering about?
Well, it seems that Gus has just discovered your, shall we say, political vis-a-vis dead in his dressing room.
Oh, you mean he's had a heart attack?
No, I don't mean anything of the kind. He's been stabbed. In how many places did you say, Gus?
In 6 places, Mr. Holmes.
But that's impossible. I talked to him not half an hour ago. We had a little conference, Sub Rose, you understand, while he was waiting for Gus to come in and give him his fat out. Well, he was quite all right when I left him.
Oh, really? Are you sure?
What do you mean? Of course I'm sure. Canterbury was alive and dressing like a trooper when I left him. I passed Gus in the corridor as I came out of Canterbury's dressing room. He'll tell you the old boy was alive and kicking.
Oh, will he? How about it, Gus?
It is true I hear swearing, but from which dressing room it comes I could not be sure. The walls are so thin, you understand.
Yes, indeed. It's quite true the dressing room walls are thin.
Gus, who is this person, and why is he asking all these stupid questions?
But, Mr. Tunbridge, this gentleman is Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the famous detective.
I've never heard of him. Not even with you there, Holmes. well, send for Scotland Yard. This is a matter of national importance.
Quite, yes. I think you're quite right. You may as well send for Inspector Lestrade, Gus. Scotland Yard will have to be informed in any case. In the meantime, however, I think I'll take a look.
Well, in the meantime, Mr. Whoever you are, I insist that everything be left strictly alone.
Very well, then, Mr. Thingamabob, if you insist, but you'll be losing valuable time.
I most emphatically do insist.
Well, I'm getting out of here. Me too. I'd like on the phone.
You can do without me. I think I'll just...
Just a moment, gentlemen. Just a moment, if you please. I think it's only fair to point out to you all that suspicion is bound to fall on anyone who leaves before the authorities have had a chance to search and question him.
Touch me. Oh. You mean I have to be searched?
We seem to have stirred up quite a hornet's nest, Watson?
Yes, and I brought you in here for arrest.
Well, Lestrade? Nasty mess, eh, Mr. Holmes? Knife from the back.
Yes, not once, but 6 times. Deep, ferocious thrusts. Quite unnecessarily brutal. And, if I may say so, bloody.
Yeah. Place looks like a charnel house.
Yes, whoever did the deed must have been drenched in blood. Might tell your men to search for blood-stained towels or garments, will you, Lestrade?
Yes. Well, I'll pick up anything that's got blood on it. Never you fear, Mr. Holmes. I've ordered a search of everybody and everything on the premises.
Yes, that's not going to be very popular with Mr. Tunbridge, eh, Holmes?
Oh, I wouldn't care if he was the Archbishop of Canterbury. When Scotland Yard says search everybody, we search everybody. Besides, everybody knows he and the corpse here are bitter enemies. They fought like cat and dog. How long would you say he'd been dead, Mr. Holmes?
Oh, I don't know. About, let me say, an hour and a half. Took 40 minutes to get you here, Lestrade. And Canterbury had been dead, let me see, over half an hour when Gus found him.
Yes, Gus. Did the doorman notice who left the establishment during the half hour before the body was found?
Yes, sir. Only old Mr. Welford. And he's too feeble and nearsighted to do a crime like this.
Was the door to Lord Canterbury's dressing room locked?
No, sir.
Oh? And how does it happen that he lay here for over half an hour before anyone found him?
Particularly as he was down on the books for a massage half an hour before he was found.
Well, you see, I thought he was asleep. Lord Canterbury, sometimes he liked a little nap after he was in the steam room, and he didn't want I should disturb him.
Oh, that's very interesting. Then you did come in this room once before you realized Lord Canterbury was dead?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. But he was lying there so peaceful.
So peaceful, yes. On his back?
Yes, sir, just like we found him. It wasn't until the second time I come in I see he has his eyes open.
And the place is, shall we say, all spattered with blood?
It was so dark. The shades were drawn. It was not easy to see anything if you don't look close.
Even then, some people are unable to observe the most obvious facts.
And what might you mean by that?
Oh, just an observation, Lestrade. Just a gratuitous observation.
Come in. Well, Willis, what's up?
We searched the place from top to bottom, just like you said, Inspector. And there's no blood stains nowhere, except on this.
And what's that?
A pocket knife, sir. Large size.
Oh.
The handle's been wiped off, but there's still some blood stains on the blade. We found it in the locker of a bloke named Tunbridge.
Just a minute, Lestrade. Don't go off the deep end. Willis.
Yes, sir?
You say there were no bloodstains anywhere except on this knife.
Not a sign of a bloodstain nowhere.
You searched the dirty linen hampers, the towels and lockers, where the customers had their clothes?
Oh, yes, sir. We searched everything. There's not a sign of blood anywhere but on that there weapon.
Amazing.
That's enough for me. This here is the murder weapon, and it was found in Tunbridge's locker. Bring him in here, Willis, and we'll have him on the carpet.
Yes, sir. Right away.
I knew he was the murderer from the beginning. Who has the motive for killing Canterbury? This chap Tunbridge. Who had the opportunity? This chap Tunbridge. He admits himself he had a talk with the deceased, and they had words. And where is this here bloodstained knife found? Nowhere but in this Mr. Tunbridge's locker.
Stupid place for a murderer to hide the fatal weapon in his own locker. Tunbridge isn't as stupid as that, Lestrade.
No? Then why was it there?
Look here, this is an outrage, keeping me here like this. Well, don't you realize I have influence? Well, you might at least let me put on my clothes instead of hauling them about. I'll complain to the authorities. I'll have you dismissed, all of you.
Oh, maybe you will, sir. And then again, maybe you won't. But first of all, you'll answer some questions. Have you ever seen this knife before?
Knife? Yes, of course. It's mine. I've had it all my life. I used to take it fishing when I was a boy.
Oh, indeed. That would explain its size, then.
Well, now I use it to open my letters.
Oh, you do? Are you sure that's all you use it for?
Yes, of course.
And why are these here blood stains on it?
Blood stains?
Yeah.
Where?
Here and here and here. No, don't you touch it. We don't want to destroy any possible fingerprints.
But if it's mine, my fingerprints are already on it.
Yes, he's right there, Lestrade.
Furthermore, that stain doesn't look like blood to me. It's not red enough. It looks like rust.
As a matter of fact,
If the stain is a nice blood red, it's fairly certain it's not blood. Now, this particular stain, as far as I see...
this particular stain to Scotland Yard, Mr.
Yes. Don't forget, my dear Lestrade, I invented the first infallible test for blood stains.
That's quite true, Lestrade. You did.
Yes, indeed. My test is infallible. It works on blood that is new or on blood that is old. I discovered the first reagent, which is precipitated by hemoglobin.
I'm sorry, mister, I'm sorry, but Scotland Yard hasn't any time for lectures. We believe in action. Now, Mr. Tunbridge, it's my duty to take you into custody, and it's also my duty to warn you that anything that you may say may be used in evidence against you.
Anything I say? Do you realize whom you're arresting? I'm a leading figure in British politics.
So was this fellow who lies here stabbed with your knife, which has still got bloodstains on it.
Lestrade, if you'll pardon me for saying so, in this case, it's not the bloodstains that are in evidence, but the bloodstains that are not in evidence, which is the significant factor.
What? Oh, what do you mean by that?
Simply that it would have been rather difficult for Mr. Tunbridge to have committed a murder as gory as this one without having bloodstains on the towel he's wearing or on the clothes which are still in his locker.
What was to prevent him from dropping his towel outside Lord Canterbury's dressing room, going in and knifing him in the back, then sneaking down to the shower rooms, not more than 20 feet down the corridor, and washing away the evidence?
Me going round about it in the nude? Certainly not.
Most certainly not, sir. Remember, my dear Lestrade, as you drag one of Britain's leaders away to jail, that it might have been possible for him to stab his enemy in a fit of temper, but he would never have dreamed of running up and down the corridors in his birthday suit. Oh, let me see. I'm afraid I shall have to look for another explanation of the missing bloodstains.
Holmes, it's very late. Everyone else has left the Turkish bar.
Everyone but the faithful Gus.
Oh, I don't mind. Tonight we have by my house sauerkraut. I don't like sauerkraut. Besides, I've got to stay and lock up.
Then you'll have to wait till we find the bloodstains. They're here somewhere. That's why I sent home for my famous benzidine peroxide mixture. Somewhere on the premises there is a towel or linen or something that has bloodstains.
Oh, but we've been through the towels and the linen a dozen times, Holmes. No sign of blood. Furthermore, according to the establishment's checklist, there are no towels or any linen missing. Even Gus, his linen, which he washes himself, is hung here on the line.
You don't wash any linen but your own, do you, Gus?
No, Mr. Holmes. Everything go out to the laundry. I wash my own because I'd like to be fresh and clean. Twice a day I wash, noon and evening.
Yes. The evening's job hasn't been done yet, eh?
No. This one I washed this noon. It's my towel from this morning.
Oh, yes. This morning's towel washed this noon. Yes. What was it? Canterbury was murdered in the middle of the afternoon about 3:30. Now it's now after 7 o'clock. Don't you see, Watson? This towel. Don't you see?
Uh-huh. I don't. Makes a bastard thing. The towel's as clean as a whistle.
But not dry. If it had been washed at noon, it would be dry now. But it's still damp. Yes, it was washed after Canterbury's death.
Of course. To remove the bloodstains.
Gus? Mr. Holmes. That's why you didn't report the death until half an hour after Canterbury had died.
Oh, no.
You had to have time to remove the bloodstains.
But that's not true. Besides, you can't prove anything. The towel is clean now. There are no marks, no stains.
The very fact that there were no stains on it, Gus, first made me suspect you. Lord Canterbury was found lying on his back. And yet, when you informed us that he had been stabbed, you were quite definite about the number of times that he'd been stabbed. But in the back.
Yes?
Yes. How did you know that, Gus?
Well, I lift him up and I look.
Of course, I see what you're getting at, Holmes. He couldn't have done that. No one could examine the corpse without getting blood all over himself.
And yet, when Gus appeared to tell us of Canterbury's death, there wasn't a spot of blood on him. But if I can prove that this towel which you so carefully washed once had blood stains and that you were very careful to remove those stains...
That you will never prove. I have scrubbed, I have used soap, I have even boiled that towel. There is not even a suspicion of a blood stain left.
That is where you're wrong, my friend. Watson, run the water into this tub, will you? No matter how thoroughly you try to remove a blood stain, it will never... Out. Damn it, spot. Yes, we only need enough to moisten the cloth. Now I'll drop a few drops of my famous solution onto the cloth. There we are.
Well, all I can see is about a fair blue street.
Yes, it's undoubtedly blood.
Blood?
Yes, the curious blue streaks prove infallibly that there was blood on the towel. And now, Gus, are you going to explain why you were so anxious to remove these bloodstains?
No, I did not do it. It was Mr. Tunbridge. He did it. The knife was his knife. There was blood on it. Let me out of here. It's not my fault. I don't want to hurt.
Holmes, he's running away.
Watson, you can't let him escape.
Well, there he goes down the corridor.
He's gone into the steamboat.
Don't worry. I'll get him. Phew. The steam's thick in here. I can hardly see my hand before my face.
Must be in here. Look under the benches, Watson. Watson, leave the door open. Let some of this blasted steam out of here, will you?
I didn't shut the door. Holmes, you hear that?
The door. Someone's locked the door.
Hey, somebody, let us out. Let us out, you hear? We're locked in. We've been locked in by mistake.
No, you're wrong. It was no mistake, my friend.
Moriarty. He's here in the steamer with us.
No, that's just his voice through the ventilator. So you were behind this murder too, Professor?
Of course. Perhaps you would like to know why I had to kill Lord Canterbury.
Yes, indeed. That would be very interesting.
Good. I found it necessary to start a feud between the two great political parties, because they're in danger of forming a coalition, to pass certain housing reforms that would have proved very expensive to me. Well, what better way to break up an incipient collaboration than by killing one leader, having the other hanged for his murder?
Very ingenious, Moriarty. A pity you should have chosen such a clumsy tool as Gus.
Clumsy? Perhaps. But he fooled Scotland Yard, Mr. Holmes. It was just my ill luck that you should be on the premises when the accident occurred.
Thank you for the compliment.
Not at all. However, it's a mistake which I'm sure Gus will be able to rectify.
Gus? How?
Very simple. I've sent him to put more coals on the fire. Any moment now, there should be more steam. Yes, gentlemen, much more steam. I'm afraid that when you finish with this steam bath, you will never need another. No. You will be boiled alive.
He's right there. There comes the steam pouring out of the opening over our heads. If only we could reach that opening, we could stuff some of these towels into the pipeline and cut off the flow.
Good Lord, Holmes, it's getting very hot in here.
Wait. I have it. One of the long benches. I'll stand on the end. You'll have to balance it while I climb on the top. Talk, Watson. Make a noise. Anything to cover up the moving of the bench.
Very well. Oh, it's getting hot. Moriarty. This has gone far enough. We can't stand much more of this.
Steady, Holmes. I'll hand me up a towel, quick.
Moriarty, turn the steam off. You hear, Moriarty? Can't you hear? The heat, it's becoming unbearable. Yes, more towels, Holmes.
Is it getting hot enough in there, gentlemen Boyle? I'm sure it is. Boiled nice and pink, boiled in steam, live steam. Goodbye, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Now what happened? You can't stand up there all night, Holmes.
Someone has to. Pressure's terrific. Huh? Very lucky. The sun becomes so great that it may burst the boiler.
That's dangerous. Buildings have been known to collapse because of bursting boilers.
Nevertheless, it's our one chance. Only the confounded boiler bursts before my arm is snapped in two.
But Holmes, your arm isn't as strong as the boiler plate.
Pressure. Pressure, my dear Watson. Measured per square foot of air surface. Quite a bit of service to a boiler. The opening of this pipe is fairly small. All the same, I'm afraid I can't hold out much longer, Watson.
Hold on, Holmes. Hold on. It must burst soon. It must.
The pressure. My hands. My hands. Look out. Look out. Look out.
And you came through the explosion all right, Dr. Watson?
Well, I had a nasty crack where Holmes and the bench fell on me, and Holmes had the wind knocked out of him, but we were in fairly good shape by the time the fire brigade pulled us out from the wreckage.
Moriarty wasn't by any chance trapped or killed or something?
Unfortunately, no. But they found Gus, however, quite dead.
I suppose the exploding boiler did for him.
No, there was a bullet wound in the back of his head. I rather imagine that Moriarty wanted to make sure that he would never appear in court.
Doctor, if I had to go through what you went through in that Turkish bath episode, I think I'd never want to work on another case with Holmes again.
Oh, come now, Mr. Gamble. I certainly did feel like that for a couple of hours. But by the time we got back to Baker Street and sat down to one of Mrs. Hudson's good meals, Well, I was ready for anything that Holmes had in mind. You know, there's nothing like a good dinner to make you feel a new man.
You have been listening to An Adventure in Crime with Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes and Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson.
Welcome back. Well, this is the first time we have heard the appearance of Professor Moriarty in the Rathbone Bruce version, and this is the role of Professor Moriarty was actually played by Louis Hector, who you'll recall was one of the early Sherlock Holmes we heard. In one way, it really. Having Moriarty as somebody you can pull out of a hat, it really is a great way to be able to raise the level of the story. Rather than having Sherlock Holmes just defeat the common crooks, the presence of Moriarty as someone who can just turn up and really provide a rival to Holmes was a big mainstay, not only of the radio show, but also of several of the Sherlock Holmes movies. Of course, Moriarty wasn't in that many of the original stories, but there was really, I think, a desire here to increase some of the excitement after so many episodes. The announcer at the beginning of the show, I have to be honest, I don't quite know who he is. The information I have, it mentions Knox Manning, who we've heard, and he did the bromoquinine, and Harry Bartell, who would take over in the 1945-46 series, but not a whole lot about this Mr. Campbell. So if you happen to have any information about him, please send it to box13@greatdetectives.net. Of course, this was an Armed Forces Radio Services presentation of Sherlock Holmes, so no Petri wine commercials. Did get one more comment we're going to share, and then we will wrap the show up. Michael Galea, a longtime listener, comments over on the show site at greatdetectives.net. I remember my father telling me he had the chance to see Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce do a Sherlock Holmes story live while he was in the Army during World War II. My dad was in Southern California getting ready to ship out. Mr. Rathbone and Mr. Bruce provided my dad and the other troops with a great night of entertainment. It's sad that I did not have the chance to thank Mr. Rathbone and Mr. Bruce for that night. Great podcast, thank you. There were so many actors that did so much during the war. And I think, obviously, Basil Rathbone wasn't staying on the air doing Sherlock Holmes for the money, because as soon as, a year after the war was over, we talked about that, kind of just got tired of the show. But even beyond that, it seems like when you listen to these World War II era radio shows, that everything seemed to have taken on an elevated state, even the business of entertainment. So much was done for the tropes to provide them with materials and with radio, and on occasion some movies. It was providing just those little bits of comfort and distraction from all that was going on in the world. And sometimes I think that entertainers lose track of that they really, or of the sense that their job is ultimately to provide a service to people. And I think that understanding was really strong during World War II. And as you listen to the Rathbone Bruce episodes, particularly Nigel Bruce, you hear a lot in the after show comments, a lot of stuff about the war. So it's very timely, and I think I really continue to enjoy every episode we do with these guys. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, bringing you yours truly, Johnny Dollar. All right, well, if you have any comments on the show, as always, please feel free to email me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Please cast your vote for the show over at Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. Follow us over on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. And please, if you haven't already, take our listener survey, survey.greatdetectives.net. Well, I'm going to be testing the idea of brief bonus public domain videos with some way of delivering commentary. Still working out some of the details, but I'm going to test that possibility of doing that out. So tomorrow you'll get a download from this. It'll be a short video clip, and it's basically just going to be a movie trailer. I'm just trying to test the movie capabilities, see how it comes through to people, and see if there are any issues with doing that. So just be aware that's coming. It's not, nothing's wrong or up or any problem at all. All right, well, we're going to get into today's episode in a little bit. I should comment that there's yet another missing episode. Between last week's episode, Murder Ain't Minor, and this week's episode, Out of the Fire into the Frying Pan, there was another episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, subtitled How Not to Take a Vacation in Fairfax, Virginia. I wonder where that episode was set. Oh, well, anyway, that episode is missing. It is believed that this episode was actually the same plot as the first Edmund O'Brien episode called Death Takes a Working Day. So hopefully we won't miss out on the whole plot. But it's still in that annoying section where we continue to have so many missing episodes. I almost feel like saying, welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio, where we bring you every other episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Well, it'll settle down in a bit. But before we get into today's episode, which takes us out to an exotic locale in Iowa, and hopefully Iowans have a good sense of humor. This poke's a little fun. I do want to remind you, whether you're going to Iowa or Idaho or Ohio, and there are people in some very large states that have all of those states confused, remember that as you make your travel plans to get a great deal, as well as to support the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio, remember this simple web address. JohnnyDollarAir.com. That's JohnnyDollarAir.com, which is Priceline.com. So enjoy all the great deals of Priceline, of course, with its famous celebrity spokesman, Captain Kirk, and also support great old time radio at the same time. Remember that name, JohnnyDollarAir.com. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into today's episode, Out of the Fire into the Frying Pan.
Mrs. Perkins won the prize, but I got in the biggest pickle at the county fair. This is another in the adventures of America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar. At insurance investigation, Johnny Dollar is only an expert. At making out his expense account, he is an absolute genius. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar. To Home Office, Corinthian Liability and Bonding Company, Terminal Building, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of my expenditures during my assignment as bodyguard to Grand Blue Ribbon Champion, Spotted Poland China Hog, Rosie Barron of Iowa. Or, how you cast my pearls of wisdom before swine. Or, out of the fire into the frying pan. Expense account, item 1. $76.80. Train and bus fare, Hartford to the town of Carver, county seat of Carver County, Iowa. Expense account, item 2, $2.50. 1 Coke, 3 handkerchiefs, a bottle of salt tablets, and sunglasses, with which to combat the Corn Belt heat. Item 3, 6 bits. Get me ride to the Carver County Fairgrounds. Undoubtedly named that because the band I found in the midst of playing its afternoon concert was only spares. Hey, friend.
How's that?
I'm looking for a pig named Rosie Barron of Iowa. Tell me where I'll find his cage.
Cage? They don't keep Rollo in no cage.
Rollo? Who's he?
Well, that's short for Rosie Barron of Iowa.
Oh, yeah. Any fool would know that.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell me where he is?
See that building over there, the livestock building?
Yeah.
You'll find Rollo in the swine wing.
Swine wing? Well, that conjures up a dainty picture. A flying pig.
Afraid Rollo won't ever do much flying. Weighs 980.
Oh, well, thanks a lot.
Neighbor.
Yeah?
Why don't you try slipping out of that there coat? You won't find it near as sweaty.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Hiram. Oh, he didn't even wait to be my best friend.
Hey! Wait, I'll come with you, neighbor.
It was 96 in the shade, but things were getting hotter. Shots and screams from the livestock building were the only thing to bring me on the run. With Hiram on my heels.
What do you suppose that was?
First, I ran into a stranger just outside the entrance.
Get out of the way. Let me out of here. There's there.
Then I ran through the door.
Somebody do something. Don't just stand there. Where's the sheriff?
Hey, Hiram, what happened?
Well, didn't you see? Didn't you hear? That there woman's Mrs. Tudor. Somebody must have stole her diamond brooch.
Oh, good. I was afraid somebody might have put the snatch on Rollo.
Her husband owns Rollo. They must have been taking her pictures of Mrs. Tudor in the middle of a crowd. And when they had her smiling real pretty, them flash bulbs went off, and then somebody must have reached around from behind her, yanked the brooch, and started shooting a gun in there.
That's a tried and true method of busting up a crowd to help make a getaway. Think anybody saw who did it?
Couldn't. Those flashes would have had them blind as bats for a minute. There's the sheriff.
What's his name?
That's Harry Blewett.
Harry Blewett?
Yeah.
Sounds like a slogan from the Republican campaign.
Hey, here, you.
Wait a minute, let's go. With everybody around here trying to get my coat off. Come on, Sheriff. Loose the haberdash.
All right, now, never mind the fancy talk, young fella. I saw something pass between you and one of the thieves just outside the door.
Oh, you're out of your mind. That guy bumped into me. He came crashing out of here, and I happened to be in the way.
I'll bet you happened to be in the way. Accidentally, on purpose.
Now, that's an early American comeback. But that's the way it was. Now, look, I won't ask you for a search warrant, Sheriff. You think I got the brooch on me? Start looking.
All right, I will.
All right. Yeah, now, in that pocket, cigarettes and a lighter.
I see 'em.
You see? Yeah. And in that pocket, handkerchiefs and salt tablets.
Salt tablets?
Mm-hmm. Now, why don't you look in my inside coat pocket? In there, you'll find my wallet and identification.
I was coming to that. Dollar. Insurance investigator, Hartford, Connecticut. Well, what brought you out here?
I'm a piggy sitter for the Corinthian Liability and Bonding Company. They wrote a policy for $25,000 on your friend Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa.
Who ever heard of taking out a $25,000 insurance policy on a hog?
I did. And right now I wish I hadn't. Some people pay high premiums for publicity, Sheriff. And that's what the Blue Ribbon Prime Packing Company is doing in this case. Now, may I have my wallet back? I want to count my money.
Yeah, now, here.
All right. Here's your wallet.
You may think you're quite the joker, young fella, but I'm telling you right now, I'm going to keep an eye on you.
I got a better idea than that, Harry. If I were you, I'd go looking for that photographer.
Why? What'd he do?
He took the picture. And there's just a chance the thief may be in it.
Say, that gives me an idea.
Sheriff, whoever says you aren't smart makes no mistake. Rollo, the prize porker, wasn't hard to find. First, I followed a few signs. Then it was a matter of closing in on a contented series of juicy, slurping grunts that came blurping up out of a succulent mound of Louisiana yams. Rollo was all fat and a yard wide, but his table manners weren't much. He didn't look very smart, but he sure looked healthy. 980 pounds, Rollo, a fine figure of a pig. Pardon me, miss. Could you tell me who's in charge around here?
Well, just for the moment, I am.
Well, I'm trying to find a Mr. Worthington Tiller, who I take it owns this monster.
Monster? What?
What's the matter? Have I said something wrong?
You certainly have. And you've also said it to the wrong person. In case you don't know it, my name is Alva Anderson.
Oh, my name is Johnny Dollar. How do you do? What's all this got to do with Rollo?
Nothing. I just raised Rosie Barron of Iowa from a suckling, that's all.
Kind of got away from you, didn't it? I'm sorry, Miss Anderson. I apologize. To you, too, Rollo.
Sorry about the interruption, Miss Anderson. Some fool made off with my wife's diamond brooch. How's this excitement affecting Rollo? I hope he hasn't lost any weight.
Well, he took it very well, Mr. Tiller.
Oh, good.
This gentleman wants to see you, Mr. Dollar.
Oh, yes. Oh, from the insurance company.
That's right.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're here. We'll have your picture taken right away with my wife and Rollo. Oh, it'll make grand publicity for Blue Ribbon Prime Packers.
Oh, I don't mind having my picture taken.
Yeah.
Just so long as your wife doesn't mind having people pinch your diamond brooches.
Oh, well, now, don't worry about that. It was fully insured.
Oh, that kind,
The thing I want you to worry about is Rollo here.
Mm-hmm.
As president of Blue Ribbon, I paid Miss Anderson $10,000 for this magnificent swine, and I don't want anything to happen to it.
You bought him for $10,000, insured him for $25,000, and you don't want anything to happen to him?
Well, I don't mind paying those exorbitant premiums when I get back the kind of publicity this will bring in. I can see it in the papers now. America's fabulous insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar, sent from Hartford, Connecticut, to guard the life of that fabulous prize swine, Rosie Barron of Iowa.
Well, Mr. Tiller, I don't mind getting my name in the paper for a pig, just so long as it is not in the obituary column. I just couldn't stand having my tombstone read, Johnny Dollar no longer am. He gave up his life for a great big ham. My tombstone tagline was over the head of Mr. Tiller, but it went over right nicely with Alva Anderson, who paid off with a smile. I parlayed that into a conversation, helped me pass the time while guarding Rollo, the poor man's blue boy. By the time it was over, Alva knew a lot about me, and I knew a lot about pigs. You know, you have beautiful eyes, Alva.
Mr. Dollar, do you know it's really interesting about the origin of swine? Why, it's estimated that the Chinese people domesticated swine about 2900 B.C.
And not only that, but I'm sure you'd like Hartford.
And Mr. Dollar, you probably don't know this, but a pig is one of the most important food animals. It's an economical converter of grain and other feeds into body tissue, as the products of which furnish meat and fat for human consumption.
Alva, darling, I'll only be in town for a little while.
And not only that, but people who say that pigs are dirty don't know what they're talking about. Why, sanitation is essential to good health, rapid growth and development, and profitable production.
Oh, Rollo, what have you got that I haven't got? I still don't know whether Alva stuck around because of my charms or Rollo's. But she was still there at the changing of the guard when Mr. Tiller, in person, came to relieve me long enough for a trip to the dining hall. And what do you think they had for dinner? What else? Baked ham.
Oh, dinner was wonderful, Johnny.
Coming from you after eating baked ham, that sounds practically cannibalistic.
Oh, Johnny, stop. More coffee?
No, I've had it. Alva, you know, there's something I've been trying to say to you for the past 5 hours.
Yes, Johnny?
Well, it's just that, well, I want... What?
Oh, Mr. Sheriff.
Oh, why doesn't he blow his siren?
Well, I have to be going. It's time to get Rollo ready for the winner's trade past the grandstand. I'll just run along.
I'll just go with you.
Hey, Dollar, I want to talk to you.
Well, I'll see you later, Johnny.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff,
Hey,
You being a sort of investigator, Dollar, I knew you'd be interested in my methods.
Well, you're sure interfering with mine.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, well, do you know what I did? What? I found that photographer, had that picture developed, and rushed it up to the state capitol.
Hmm?
And they just called me. Dollar, there's a known criminal in that photo. He's got that brooch, and he's on the loose. Do you know what that means?
Yeah. It means that you shouldn't be sitting here talking to me. Who is this villain?
They say he's... Ooch over here.
Yeah. What?
They say he's known as Little Rocky. Originally hailed from Arkansas. You'd know him if you saw him. He's the fellow that bumped into you.
Oh.
I want you to help me look for him.
I take only one job at a time, Sheriff. Right now, I got to take them out. I think it was the Grand March. Boy, in case I'm interested later, how much do you pay your special deputies a day?
$7. And expensive.
Sheriff Blewett, I'm afraid that blows it. The Carver County Pickle and Pie winners were lining up to lead the Grand March by the time I got to the grandstand. Down at the tag end of the livestock echelon, there was a shiny white cab and trailer, sporting the markings and mottos of the Blue Ribbon Prime Packing Company. And high upon it, perched on a platform and surrounded by a sturdy iron railing, stood that champion, the pride of the pork set, Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa. It was lovely. It was divine. I had a feeling that swelled my heart with pride. Here they were, products of the American home and the American soil. A fanfare of foodstuffs flowing from the horn of plenty. Just because of my association with Rollo, I felt that I was playing some small part in this gallant parade as it was started the first leg of its journey. It was inspiring. It was thrilling. It was... Boing! All of a sudden, it was downright frightening. As Rollo's chariot rolled by, I got an eyeful of its driver. It was my comrade in collision, the guy who had put the snatch on Mrs. Tiller's diamond, Little Rocky from Arkansas. I added to my treasury of thankless tasks by trying to pin a tackle on a 5-ton truck. I got a door handle with one hand, running more with one foot, and a spout and a teeth from an unexpected adversary.
Knock him loose, Rollo. He's on the running board.
Hey, what? I was flat on my back. Everybody was screaming and hollering, a suction crashing to the bridge. And Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa, was one little piggy who wasn't staying at home.
In just a moment, the second act of Johnny Dollar. But first, taking in the action from Johnny Dollar, are you? All right, that's good, because staying with CBS is the way you'll head straight for the big return from vacation 8 days from now, Monday the 29th, of Lux Radio Theater and all the other big Monday night CBS favorites. And by staying with CBS, you'll find more action later tonight with Bill Grant of Call the Police and with Sam Spade, who will be heard from on most of these same CBS stations. Now, with our star, Charles Russell, we return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Johnny, are you all right? Can you get up?
Oh, the spirit's willing. I'm not sure about my spine.
Here, let me help.
I'm the guy who goes around telling kiddies never to hitch rides on trucks. Well, nobody can say I didn't make a dent in Iowa.
It was wonderful the way you tried. But what are you going to do now?
Right now, I don't know. The only place I can think of at the moment where I might find a hot pig is a barbecue stand.
Oh, this is no time to be funny.
Well, look, up until now, all the laughs are on me, kid, so let me be the judge, huh?
Well, what are you going to do?
Well, first I'm going to practice my arithmetic and see what adds up. You can't unload a stolen pig in a pawn shop. So, question number one is, where do you unload it? Where would you go?
Well, where would I... Well, I'd never thought of it.
Well, here's what I figured. The Rollo on the hoof is too well known to peddle for anything like the dough he's really worth. I mean, he's not like a big diamond that you can cut up and Or is he? What is the going price on pork?
The market this morning was at $23.50.
Oh, well, that kind of money hardly sounds like Little Rocky's kind of project. But maybe he thinks it's tough. By the way, Alva, have you ever been in Arkansas by any chance?
Why'd you ask?
Just wondered.
Dollar, just a minute. I want to
talk to you. Barnyard bloodhound himself. Yeah, Sheriff?
Would you mind, Alvin?
I was just leaving.
How could she be that cold on such a hot night?
Huh?
What's bothering you, Sheriff?
I saw your little performance, Dollar, when you leapt at that truck. Just how hard was you really trying?
How hard was I... I ought to punch you in the nose, badge or no badge.
Now, don't you go getting huffy. I just want you to know that I don't fool easy. When I'm on a case, I'm suspicious of everybody.
Yeah, that must be rough on your wife. How often do you have her in handcuffs?
Huh? Well,
Now, look, Sheriff, all I need from you is the use of a car so I can go looking for old Lardhead.
No, you don't. There's enough missing around here as it is. Rollo, Miss Tiller's jewelry, and I ain't about to add a county vehicle to the mess. And besides, I want to keep an eye on you.
Good. You might learn something. Come on.
Here, wait a minute. Where are you going?
Over to the Ferris wheel. That truck hasn't been off the fairgrounds more than a couple of minutes. I want to get a look at the countryside.
Ferris wheel. Say, that gives me an idea.
I hoped it would. Come on. Say, Sheriff, I don't know very much about this farm-side sorting racket.
Well, there's more to it than meets the eyes, I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah, I bet there is. Tell me, didn't I see a feed trough on Rollo's truck with a lot of mash in it?
Well, now, let's see. If he ate yams this afternoon, he'd eat mash tonight, all right.
Does mash kick up any kind of a smell?
Oh, sour swill. But the pig seems to like it.
Uh-huh. How does this sound to you, Sheriff? Suppose right after you take your ride to the top of the Ferris wheel to case the countryside, we were to get ourselves a nice hungry pig.
Say, that gives me an idea. We could take that pig and he could smell that mash in the air and sniff out the trail of that truck.
Sheriff, if you aren't a genius, I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, sure.
It was planting time in Iowa that night, at least for ideas. Two of which I had planted in the not-too-fertile mind of Sheriff Harry Blewett. And as long as it took us to walk from the trotting track to the Ferris wheel, it came harvest time for notion number one.
Right this way for the big ride on the big wheel. Hurry, hurry, hurry.
Okay, mister, okay. I'm the sheriff. I want you to run me up to the top of that wheel and hold me there long enough for me to get a look around.
When the wheel came to a stop with Harry Blewett sitting in his little cage at the top, I pulled a low trick on a high sheriff. I bought a pink lemonade from the juice stand next to the Ferris wheel, walked over to the motor that rolled the big heap, unscrewed the cap on the gas tank, and gave it a big, long drink. I hope it wasn't doing to people's stomachs what it did to that motor. You might well remember this harmless little deceit the next time you have occasion to get rid of a sheriff.
This kind of publicity is a little too expensive, Dollar. I demand that you do something.
Now, don't worry, Mr. Tiller. I am going to do something. And I'll thank you to remember that the only ones who stand to get hurt right at this point are the insurance companies that wrote the policies on your pig and your wife's diamond brooch.
Why, Worthington, I hadn't thought of that.
Huh?
Why should we worry? My brooch is insured for way over the value there. We hadn't...
Hortense, you keep flapping that loud tongue of yours, the first thing you know, they'll be accusing us.
Why, they wouldn't dare.
Oh, yes, we would, Mrs. Tiller.
It was just not the
A
time.
$15,000 profit on a pig and whatever else you could make on your jewelry might make anybody the type.
Now, see here, Dollar. I've had just about enough of your slanderous implications. I have a few thoughts you might profit by.
Go ahead, Worthington.
I'm always interested in profit, Tiller.
My father had the same thing happen to him back in 1902.
That's right.
Remember, dear?
Yes.
In Nebraska. He bought a prize pig at a fancy price. And then the scoundrel that sold it to him turned around and stole it back. There, see? See? What do you think of that?
Would this be a suggestion that we throw the young lady who sold your pig to you in the pokey on the strength of something that happened 37 years ago?
Well,
That's for you to decide, Dollar.
Right.
Just don't say I didn't warn you.
I see. Yeah. If you don't have an orchid to pin on the young lady, try suspicion. With most of the crowd packed in the grandstand watching the free attraction, I had a good chance to scout the fairground for Alva Anderson, from whom I wanted to learn a little bit more about the habits of not only pigs, but their ex-owners. A trail led me past the home-baked cake, hybrid corn, the watermelon pickle, tractor and harrow exhibits, and all the way back to where I'd first met her, Rollo's pen in the swine wing of the livestock building. But when I got there, Rollo's cupboard was bare. Alva was leaving for the rear door in the company of a small, tough-looking gent carrying a sack over his shoulder. Name of Little Rocky from Arkansas. I could hardly believe it, but they piled into a car and hauled off up the road. At the risk of adding one last insult for the most recent injury I'd inflicted upon Sheriff Blewett, I stole his car and went dusting up the highway in hot pursuit. There's nothing easier to follow than a red taillight on a clear night. And the bright Mazda Ruby tacked onto the rear of Little Rocky's car led me around the village of Carver and 11 miles out to the pastures to a shack hidden in a grove of elm trees 100 yards off the road. I parked the car and legged it in. From 25 feet away from the house, I could crawl the roll through an open window. They were all there. Little Rocky, a strong-arm man who would knock me off the running board, Alva Anderson, and last but not least, there was Rollo, all 980 pounds of them, and most important to me, still alive.
Here you are, Milo, you stupid clown. Oh, stop. This is all the sweet potatoes that was left. First to go through them, and then we'll be ready for you, Alva.
Oh, but I told you I don't have it.
We'll see about that later. Hey, Milo, don't get the porker excited. Here, put the sack on the table. Then when we look at him, we throw him out the window and away from him. Now, hurry up.
All right. Well, it ain't this one. Ain't this one either. Nope. Ain't this one.
Shut up. Just look.
Well, I just...
And from now on, from you, no thinking. Anybody dumb enough to stash a $30,000 hunk of jewelry and pig food ought to go see a head doctor.
Oh.
Through the open window, I was being bombarded by sweet potatoes and facts. While making a getaway after ripping the brooch from Mrs. Tiller's throat, Little Rocky's accomplice had suffered a sudden attack of panic and had hidden the brooch in one of Rollo's lunchtime yams. Whether that yam was inside the piggy or out, they and I were apparently just on the verge of learning.
Ain't here.
Then that means...
That means your little friend here had a $30,000 snack today, which right now is giving me a great big bellyache. You know all about pigs. What do we do about it?
Well, Rocky was yellow. He wouldn't rub him out.
Look who's talking. Here, take my 38 if you're so tough. Yeah, I thought so. Now shut up.
Well, I ain't killing no piggy with him just standing there looking at me. If he'd only make a break for it, I'd mow him down.
Now look, baby, we'll kill him if we got it. We want that chunk of ice and we want it fast. Milo, tease him into the corner with a sweet potato.
We're throwing them all out the window.
Oh, please, Mr. Rocky,
You
don't.
shut up, too, and sit down. Close your eyes if you want to.
Oh, please, Mr. Rocky.
In the manner of Sheriff Blewett, I had an idea, given to me, of course, by Rocky. Alva was sitting in the corner, Rollo was scratching his side by rubbing it against the opposite, and Rocky and Milo were standing shoulder to shoulder in the middle of the room, ready to advance on him. I groped around in the dark until I found one of the yams, and taking the sweet potato delicately in my hand, I tossed it through the window so that it would roll to a point just behind Rocky and his pal Milo. Rollo took my bait and, getting to it, knocked his two would-be executioners in a heap on the floor. I took over from there, jumping to the window and applying a kitchen chair dutifully to the mysterious, reducing enemies to a state of unconscious surrender. They gave out, Alva gave up, and Rollo gave me a dirty look. Well, Mr. Tiller, here he is, safe and sound, good as new, fat and sassy.
Well, good. Congratulations.
And not only that, but in him someplace, he not only has a good fighting heart, but also that diamond brooch of your wife.
Oh, yes, very interesting. Well, I'd better go charter a plane. Rollo is due in Kansas City at noon tomorrow.
Oh, but it might upset him, Mr. Tiller. Rosie Barron of I was never flown before. He might lose weight.
Well, what's the big hurry to get him to Kansas City? He booked for a personal appearance?
Oh, no. No, hardly that. He's due to be slaughtered at a special ceremony. All the plans are made. Oh, I wouldn't want to disappoint my boys. They've been looking forward to this.
How do you like that? Why, it's almost murder. Poor Rollo.
Oh, Johnny.
Come on, let's get out of here, Alva. Gosh, who'd have ever thought I, Johnny Dollar, would ever gotten so attached to a pig? Expense account, item 4, $3.50. Dinner for Alva and me. A vegetable dinner, by the way. And speaking of that, reminds me, if you find a $30,000 brooch in a pork chop, it'll only mean that the Blue Ribbon Prime Packing Company didn't have much luck when they went looking for it. Expense account item 5, $20. One new gold-plated badge, which I sent to Sheriff Harry Blewett, appeasement, for having stranded him atop that Ferris wheel, for stealing his car, and for suggesting that he use a hungry pig for a bloodhound. Oh, the porter followed the mash scent, all right. Next morning, they found Sheriff Blewett searching an old mash factory, 8 miles the wrong side of town. Item 6, $76.80. Bus and train fare, Carver, Iowa, back to Hartford, Connecticut. Well, I'm still wondering every morning at breakfast time, what else can you eat with eggs? Except ham or bacon or sausage. And maybe you don't think that's a problem, having known a certain champion named Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa. Expense account total, $1,463. Yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Norman MacDonald and stars Charles Russell with script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Featured in the cast were Parley Bear, Sammy Hill, and John Daner, with Junius Matthews, Ann Morrison, Jack Crucian, and Paul Dubov. Pinto Colvig was Rollo. The special music is written and conducted by Leif Stevens. Be sure to be with us at the same time next week when another most unusual expense account is handed in by yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Your Hit Parade on Parade will be back tonight in the familiar CBS Jack Benny time with the great tunes of August 12 years ago. Sweet Leilani and Where or When. Many another still green in your memory will be among the hits you will hear. Speaking of hits, put down August 29th this year in your little book. That's when Arthur Godfrey and his talent scouts, the stars of Lux Radio Theater, My Friend Irma, and Bob Hawke return to join Inner Sanctum. So make your Monday nights a regular date with CBS. This is Roy Rowan speaking. Stay tuned now for your Hit Parade on Parade. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
All right, welcome back. I'm glad Owen's got a good sense of humor. That was actually a pretty fun episode, and I think very representative of what the show under Charles Russell really was. It had this great tongue-in-cheek play and a certain mischievousness about the Russell character, almost sometimes bordering a bit on. A bit on the nasty side. But he made up for it by feeling sorry about what happened to the pig, which of course made the whole thing somewhat, ironic, all the effort expended. By the way, if you were wondering why he thought the sheriff's name, Harry Blewett, he said it sounded like a Republican campaign slogan. This actually relates back to the 1948 presidential campaign, which had just happened the year before. Harry Blewett after Harry Truman, the Democratic president. So that's why he joked that it sounded like a Republican slogan. All right, well, we've got some comments on Podcast Alley and an email, so we'll go ahead and get into that before we wrap up the show for the week. Ken emails in. Hi, Adam. Love the programs and your commentary. Was wondering if you're ever going to add any Agatha Christie. I'm a huge fan. Thanks, Ken. Well, Ken, we're definitely going to do some episodes based on Agatha Christie. There's a bit of a challenge in locating legitimate old-time radio featuring Agatha Christie. It's very characters, particularly Poirot. It's very popular to label the BBC radio adaptations of Poirot stories released in the 1980s as old-time radio. If it's from the 1980s, it's not old-time radio. But it makes it hard to find the legitimate stuff. And so it's going to be a little while. I want to, if I do this, as I do everything, I want to be very thorough. So what have I found so far? Well, there's a Campbell Theater presentation of one Christie novel. There was another Christie novel that was adapted to a fascinating anthology series called Murder Clinic. The premise of the series was that each week they would do a different great detective, and Poirot was on there twice. One of those performances is still in existence. So, and then there was a Poirot radio series that was not based on the Agatha Christie stories. And then there are some other episodes of Christie that are out there that are not so much detective stories, but they're more kind of mystery suspense stories and don't necessarily fit with the show. And one of the weirder cases, the ABC murders, that one was actually a very famous Poirot story, was adapted by Suspense. But Suspense actually took Poirot out of the story, and thus it was no longer a detective story. So we'll look for those that are legitimately old-time radio. And these will be radio shows that were broadcast in the United States before 1972. So if you happen to be aware of any Agatha Christie stories, detective stories, not stories where a woman's afraid of husband poisoning her, not the kind of thing we're looking for, but detective stories that were put on the air, please send them my way, box13@greatdetectives.net. If it fits into Poirot, then we'll use that when we do the Poirot episodes. If it's not Poirot, but it's another detective, then we can use that for one of our specials, which we do every 20 weeks or so. So definitely we will be doing some Agatha Christie. One other thing on tonight's episode, if you listened during the commercials, you heard a show advertised called Call the Police. I actually had the occasion to listen to it. It's in the singles and doubles collection for old-time radio researchers, and that's basically just an archive of shows where only one or two episodes is in existence. And there's only one episode of Call the Police. It didn't necessarily impress me a whole lot. It was kind of a mystery story about on par with Scooby-Doo, at least the episode that I heard. But there was a lot more to the show than that particular episode. But that's all that's made it. So, if there's better episodes out there, well, hopefully we'll find out about it. All right. Well, we got 2 comments on Podcast Alley, and then we'll go ahead and sign off for the night. Comment, love the show, hope there's more to come, and the best show out there. Well, thanks so much for the votes and support over on Podcast Alley. I'm having a Columbo moment. One more thing on the on Agatha Christie mysteries. A great resource if you use your computer is to I've mentioned it before, but BBC Radio 7 frequently makes episodes of Poirot and other Agatha Christie detectives available for free listening online. You just go over to BBC Radio 7 and take a listen. So, all right. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Got any comments? Please feel free to send it to me at box13@greatdetectives.net. And again, please cast your vote for us once a month over on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.